hang down. The hairs on a dicky dido hang down to her. Oh, we live?
We are.
Yes.
Very nice. That deserves some.
Hi, folks.
Also, I don't know if you were listening to the content of that song, but it was a very nice singing voice.
I've lost control of my mixer.
Lost control of your mixer?
I've lost control.
That's what Mary Berry says. She's a
gosh darn it.
She's a chef or cook in the UK.
It's a different kind of mixer, I guess.
Not the KitchenAid mixer.
Yeah, not the kitchen mixer. All right.
Excellent.
Why does it keep losing connection? I
don't know.
It was a rhetorical question.
Okay, sorry.
Well, I've had a couple of very strong espressos. In fact, I've got my second one in front of me, so hopefully I won't yawn and fall. I was listening to myself on the last podcast, and like my inputs got more and more infrequent
and softer.
Like I'm just gonna
exactly,
here. And then gradually it was just
yeah. Like midnight came and went, and you kept having to wake me up to say something. It was quite amusing, I thought.
Well, I'm on beer number 1, about more than 3/4 of the way through it, and I shall probably need another one before we start.
Oh, all right. Yeah, well, I've got to go and get one, so I haven't even started there.
Yes. And I'll have 0.
Still not drinking beer.
You're still on whiskey or whatever, on Wild Women.
Yeah, and my whiskey for today's show is Barrier.
Oh, I've had several of those today.
French whiskey. That's about as strong as anything in France. Actually, well, that's not entirely true. I have had
the odor of the women.
I have had some of the aniseed
just
stuff. What do they call it? Ricard, which really takes the roof of your mouth off and melts your socks.
What are you talking about?
It's a French aniseed spirit.
Absinthe.
Absinthe.
Well, that's another one. Yeah, Ricard is the one I had in Toulouse when I was down there doing my Airbus course. But that's because we used to have a favorite little sandwich joint that served espresso sandwiches and Ricard. Well, anyway, we thought it was great. Very local.
Excellent.
You thought it was funny.
Yeah, well, anything after the Airbus simulator was funny.
Oh, well, hello, everybody in the chat room. Thanks for being patient with us.
I'm just trying to remember how Herman Munster laughed, or Rebecca.
Sure. Are you going to see if you can find a link? Look at it. Do a YouTube search for Herman Munster.
Calvados, yes. That's apple brandy, is it? Yeah, I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah, it's had some of that. You can get some good stuff, but the stuff I bought was a bit cheap and nasty, and I ended up using it to strip paint, so that was fine. It worked very well.
Whatever.
Herman Munster laugh. Hold on. Still looking for this.
You know, I might have to get something else. You amuse yourselves while I'll be right back.
Okay. We can amuse ourselves, I think.
Munster on YouTube.
It's like I can't do it because it's out of my range of octaves. Too low.
Yeah, that is low.
But it sounds like the chat room is familiar.
Yeah, I've just put him up. He was actually putting 2 fingers in his mouth and blowing a train whistle. So I'm trying to work.
No, there's a different one. It's
like
a really low.
Oh, Lane's found one.
Yeah, watch that one.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I just did, Lane.
Oh, yeah. No, not that one. There's a bunch of them that come up on YouTube, or at least in just a Google search.
Now that's annoying. How now do I get back to the chat room? Because I've now made that link's turned it into a...
Back? Go back?
Well, there's no back button on the pop-out.
Oh, well, now you have to go back to the YouTube
Oh, Nick.
What?
You're not supposed to use that one to.
You're supposed to use a different tab.
You could have.
I would have had to have right-clicked it. Yeah, I wasn't smart. I just clicked it.
I'm just saying.
Like, yeah, so, oh, wait a minute. What am I talking? No, that's no good. Oh, ass. So annoying. It's all Lane's fault. Lane. Foolish man.
Yes, blame Lane, everyone.
I shall. I just have.
What day is today?
Today is Wednesday, October 25th, my brother's birthday.
Oh, well, happy birthday, your brother. So when did we do the last show?
I have no idea.
Last week.
Last Wednesday, I think, on the 18th.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That'll help me.
Oh, who's sick now? Liz is sick.
Everyone is sick. They all have the
flu shot. Yeah, I had my flu shot this morning too.
I had mine this morning too. Everyone had the flu shot this morning. My arm is not sore at all yet. Is your arm sore? I usually don't have soreness. Well, a little bit usually, but
no. She wanted to get.
I still have a teeny tiny little Band-Aid. You want to see the cutest Band-Aids in the world that we have in my office?
Yeah.
Was there a little smiley badge on it?
No, but it's teeny tiny. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh.
Well, it's just appropriate for. Is that what you stick on people's backs after you've rammed your damn great needle into them?
No, I usually use these after I do nerve conduction studies, EMG tests, where we use a tiny little pinpoint needle. But I'm pretty good at finding there's a vein kind of like right here on the back of your hand. So I'm pretty good at aiming right for that. And that one usually requires a small baby Band-Aid. But that's all we had in the office, apparently. Or that's the one that my assistant pulled out. And she's like, oh, these are really small. I was like, yeah, it's fine. It's a Band-Aid. Don't worry. I don't even need one. It's fine. Except I kind of did because it was definitely bleeding.
Steph, it was bleeding. Oh, no.
Okay.
It would have stopped.
And that.
It's fine.
Okay, good. All right.
Well, I need to find out if my little robot's okay because he got stuck in a hole.
Oh, you're a lawnmower?
Yeah.
That's why we don't have robots flying airplanes.
Exactly right. He disappeared down the garden, and after about 5 hours, I said, have you seen the robot? He's not back in his little house. And Julie said, no. I said, well, where is he? And I went down there, and he got a wheel stuck in a hole.
Oh, poor robot.
Yeah, so he was stuck down there, turned himself off.
So, Lane, you were being blamed for the fact that Captain Nick, in his infinite wisdom, clicked on your link when he should have right-clicked on your link, and he lost his live chat room.
Yeah, you see, it's a pop-out chat room. It's not like a normal window.
But somehow he's still blaming you.
No, the lawnmower works fine. It's just, it's back on its base now. I had to... No, Liz, it's a perfect time. It's dark out there. And it's an almost inaudible mower. So, you know, you can turn it on any time, day or night. It finds its way around whether it's daylight or not. Oh, I went out.
So it's got a mower mowing in the middle of the night.
Yeah, it's a good time of day to do it, actually.
My grass doesn't need to be mowed after about this time of year. It just stops growing.
Oh, you've got very convenient grass.
Yes.
We've had actually a very warm few days. So, it's still growing out there, unfortunately.
Well, unfortunately,
Did he
my grass
out a little bit, Steph, for you, or was it just me?
Briefly.
Okay,
it wasn't bad.
Okay.
I got everything. My grass also just turns like this brownish color for the winter, and then it comes back in the spring. So,
all right. Is that because it gets a bit hot and nasty, or is it because it gets cold, or is
it's because it gets cold?
Seasonal grass. Oh, Okay, cold.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, our hardy grass likes growing in almost any weather. It's got to be like covered in snow for it to stop growing.
Gotcha. Interesting. But yeah, no lawn mowing required. I don't think the robot would do very well on my lawn either, even in ideal conditions. It's kind of a steep hill down the back of my yard.
It can do 35 degrees. So how steep is it?
Probably not 35 degrees.
How steep is your hill?
Well, what would that be like as a grade percentage?
It does actually work it out for you in the book, but I have to go and get it out.
Because I bet it's more than a 15% grade at some points. It's pretty steep. I don't know. Jeff's seen it. He could tell you. He could corroborate mine.
Yeah, it's pretty
steep. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Well, anyway.
That's all right. I just pay someone to come do my yard.
Well, that's actually probably the best way of doing it.
Yeah.
That's what I do
casing
too.
a joint while he's doing it.
What?
Well, probably. It's fine.
You're not talking about me, are you? I don't do joints.
No.
No.
I know you don't, but actually, you are from sort of the West Coast, so I thought everyone did joints in the West Coast. Oh, I had to play with my Zoom today. My Zoom. Did you see?
I didn't have a chance to. Yeah, I didn't have a chance to do it yet. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Your Zoom? What is that?
Yeah, Zoom H5 field recorder.
Yeah, I tried using the integral microphones. Well, you can actually swap them out, can't you?
Sounded good.
The ones that comes. Yeah, it did sound good. It does a few plays, but if you hold it out of the way, it seems to be fine. I seem to have lost the windshield off it though, so I was sticking
the muff.
Heil. Yes.
Okay.
No, C too rough. No, muff too tough. So I stuck my Heil muff on it, and it seemed to be quite happy.
Okay, this is not working. So the way that one way I can operate the mixer is through its own little Wi-Fi.
Oh.
And apparently it's not behaving today. I don't know why. So now I have to directly connect. But the good news is I have the cable to do that. So
is that what was causing the hum earlier?
No, that was something entirely different.
Oh, okay.
Would you hum a few bars for us? How's that?
That's fine.
All right, disconnect. So forget that. I'll just turn this one.
How much time do I have before we actually start anything here?
You have plenty of time to get a beer.
Excellent. That's what I'm going to go do.
Beer time. It's Miller time.
Beer.
I'm not going to drink that shit.
A beer.
Miller. Gross.
Beer. How am I doing? Not very well. Okay, there we go. We're going to plug. We're going to do a direct Ethernet. Am I the only one here? I'm not getting responses at all from the crew. Yeah, I guess I am. Here, let me look at the little window that shows video. Oh, look at that. They're all gone. They left me. Figures. Okay, so now let me turn this one off. Turn off. Oh. Okay, that's off, and my piece of crap Surface 3 tablet is over out of the way. By the way, we're going to talk about it on the show, but yippee, it's official. You know, the rumors were out for over a year that we were going to switch from the Microsoft hardware to Apple, and it is official now. Okay, now let me find X-Air and see if it really set up.
I forgot to mute. Sorry, guys.
Oh, that's all right. It was amusing. Entertaining. Now we're just going to wait for my machine to find the mixer.
We recording tonight through Flip.
Oh yeah, I should probably set that up.
Audio hijack, yeah.
Yeah, as a backup,
okay.
In case we have issues. Come on, you can do it. Oh, I know what I need to do. That will help. Switch it
hearing my own nose breath through the mic. I'm trying not to breathe on it.
Need to trim that nose breath.
Yes. Now, I'm just wondering what I would look like with a beard and no moustache.
Don't do that.
Pretty stupid, I reckon.
Don't know. Oh, now I'm so used to doing the control of the mixer through a device that has a touch screen, and now I'm doing the same thing on my MacBook. And it doesn't work.
No, you just end up with fingerprints on your MacBook.
Yeah, I have a lot of fingerprints on it. It is confusing, isn't it, when you're so used to like touch screens and then you have a device that doesn't have one?
That's one of the reasons I was so fed up when the latest MacBook didn't come out with a touch screen. I thought, how stupid.
Well, Steve Jobs said you never need to use a touch screen on a MacBook. But then, wait a few years and then they'll all have them.
Yeah. I mean, it's got a touch bar already. I mean, it needs to be a bit bigger.
Which is, a piece of, what, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let me see. We're making progress here. I have control of the mixer again. And am I overmodulating a little bit? It feels like I am a little bit.
Not hearing too much worry here.
Okay. So I'm there, and go ahead and say some things, Nick and Steph.
Peter Papa, Peter Becky, Paco Papa.
Good.
I can't figure out how to set up my audio hijack again.
Really? Well, how did it change?
I don't know. I closed a window and I opened a new one, and it's all different.
Do command, is it command 1 that brings you to the sessions menu?
Okay.
And then find the session that you created and double click on it.
It should be coming through the Scarlett Solo USB now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's what you're connected to, right?
AAC. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. It still has it stopped at like 3 hours and 9 minutes from last week.
I think when you press the button again and start recording, then it'll start over. I think.
I gotcha. Let me try. Scarlett Solo USB input device does not appear to be attached to your Mac. Yes, it is.
Okay. So on the little square, click on that, and then there's like a thing for you to select things. Details. And sometimes you have to select it, like it's there again in a different place. You know what I mean?
What if I just do the built-in microphone?
Do you have, so the Scarlett mixer is only
USB.
The Scarlett's only listed once?
It's actually not even there anymore.
Oh.
It went away.
So your machine doesn't recognize it being there.
Correct.
How about up in do Option key, and then on the little sound thing on your upper right hand menu? Do you get there in that list of devices, output devices, or input devices? If you hold down the Option key and click on the little
I got it.
Speaker.
Input. It says USB advanced audio device.
Okay, it's selected.
It's selected.
Huh. I don't know. Okay, so back in Audio Hijack, when you highlight that input device thing, right-click that and say turn it off or whatever. Or I guess you don't have to right-click it. You just hit the little switch that says on/off, and then turn it back on. And
it's recording now. Okay.
Oh,
it's fine. I don't know.
Now it sees it.
It sees the USB mic.
Okay.
But it's definitely
recording. But you have you're not plugged. You have the USB mic plugged into the Scarlett, right?
Yeah. Well, I have it plugged into the mic switch and then into the Scarlett.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh, that's odd.
I don't know.
All right. Whatever.
Technology. Yay.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Didn't realize this is the tech support show. Yes, it is, Tristan. Don't you love it?
I need all the tech support I can get. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Of course, I didn't do any kind of a script. So I'll just say, what should I say for in this episode?
In this episode, it's all going to be dreadful.
A CPLDC update. Runway status lights. Why don't you sound muffled now all of a sudden? Oh,
What's
she's
that?
talking to
Jeez.
somebody else.
Yeah, you've
Yeah,
suddenly gone muted. We can hardly. It sounds like you're
Oh,
talking out of your armpit.
No, how's that? Is that better?
That's better. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. My bad.
Downloads. Now I'm gonna try and put a picture of me when I had a beard and no moustache. Here we go. Select. There we go. That's what I look like.
You look like a
And you were
leprechaun.
like
That's
20 years old there.
Oh, I was in Australia, and they used to give you like a month's leave all in one go. So I used to grow a beard, and then when this time when I was going back to work, I had to shave it off. So I thought I'd shave it off in stages. So that's me with a beard and no moustache.
I say keep the mustache.
Well, I would tend to agree. I did some others. Let me see. You may not want to see them because they do look a bit weird. That's the one. Oh, there we go. How about that one? Select. There you go. How about some mutton chops?
Don't ever do that again. Said with all the love in my heart. Don't ever do that again.
Okay. You don't like my mutton chops. That's
Yeah, it does look a bit Amish.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Amish. Oh, right. Oh,
What did I
you're
do?
pulling my leg, surely.
Uh-oh.
That was me with a full set before I.
What happened? That
I
was
don't know
weird.
what happened.
So I did the four-finger swipe up, which reveals all your
That's
open.
what she said.
Can you do that on your MacBook, Steph?
No.
Take 4 fingers and then swipe up on the trackpad.
No.
No. Oh, okay.
No. I don't have that set up. I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. Well, that basically brings everything that you have open. So it's an.
I just go to a corner and it does that.
Oh, okay. So it's a convenient way for me to see everything. And then, so I did that. And then all of a sudden it revealed my desktop and everything kind of went up and to the sides and to the bottom off screen. And I couldn't figure out how to get everything back.
Oh, dear.
And I have different corners. So like the bottom right corner, everything disappears. I just see the desktop.
Oh,
Bottom or top left corner, all the open windows come into view.
How fancy.
I know.
Okay. Sound check.
Thank you, Liz.
It's loud. I'm sorry. Turning it down. Did I blow out everybody's ears?
No, it wasn't too bad.
It wasn't that.
But then I'm deaf.
Okay. Huh?
It was loud, but it wasn't that bad.
Okay. Levels, everybody in the chat room from the various hosts, pretty close.
Someone thought I was louder than you. I'm also eating chocolate.
That was
Okay.
wrong.
Ron, yeah.
Right. And Liz agreed that the APG intro was loud.
Oh.
So we have confirmed it.
So my hearing's obviously getting worse.
Well, I mean, all of ours is as we grow older.
What? Sorry?
Did you say something, Jeff?
Oh, no, I can't hear anything now. You have tinnitus, don't you, Nick?
Yes, I do.
I do as well. And it's a bugger. A bugger.
No, that's not quite right. It's a bugger.
I'm trying. What is it?
Bugger.
Bugger.
Bug. Well, you see,
Bugger.
we put the emphasis on the first half of a word. You guys tend to put it on the arse of a word.
Bugger.
The back half of a word.
We don't say bugger.
Well, you would do if you had that word in your lexicon. So say bug as in a little creepy crawly. A bug.
Bug.
And then you say bugger.
Bugger.
Yeah, that's all right. That's not bad. Bugger.
That sounds like I'm saying booger.
Just on it.
Bugger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bugger. Bugger.
Bugger.
Fumbra. It's just sad, I think.
That's actually quite a rude word over here, so perhaps we ought not to say it too often.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So don't worry, I'm not going to contact Elton John and ask him if it's okay I play a little snippet of his song. I don't feel sorry for him.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, he's okay. I think he's doing okay.
Yeah, he's probably
okay.
Yeah, but that's only because he keeps suing all these people who use snippets of songs.
Podcasters. Yes. That's how he makes his money.
On £100,000, thank you.
Okay, let me start the recording on Audition. Okay, so I see 3 separate tracks that are moving, and I guess we can do our little clap thing, huh? Ready? 1, 2, 3, clap.
You were last for some reason.
Usually,
you
with you guys, it sounds pretty close to the same, unless Dana's here, and then it's like 5 seconds later, then I hear him clap. But this time, it was like 3 distinct claps. I heard my clap, then I heard one of your claps, and then I heard another clap.
I'm only hoping that I got my recorder going in time. So do you want to do another one just in case?
Let's do another clap. Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, clap. It was closer this time.
It was.
You're 2.
Good.
Yeah, okay. I even have a little marker in there that says clap.
There you go.
All right. Let me drag it over to where the clap is. Okay. Let's see. And I'm going over here to this little thing here. And all right. Shall we?
Let's
do it.
Okay, we're starting at 13. Airline Pilot Guy, episode 295. Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 325 in the Embassy Suites Hotel in Louisville, Kentucky. In today's episode, an update on the CPDLC Iridium thing, runway status lights, Air Force could recall up to 1,000 retired pilots. Watch out, Colonel Jeff. And another Air Canada incident in San Francisco. That, more news in your feedback, and the latest Plain Tales installment, The 49ers, Part 2. So, I'm going to do that all over again, because I've run out of music.
Run out of music? How can you run out of music?
I'm running out of music.
It just got really quiet there at the end.
Yeah.
No big deal.
It just normally just fades out like that anyway. But when I was just making stuff up, I kind of just lost track of what I was saying.
Yeah.
And I forgot to get all settled in.
Restart. Don't be alarmed. I'm going to get up and leave for just a second, but I'm going to be back in time for the rest.
Please don't leave.
Don't leave.
Okay.
All right.
Here we go. Airline Pilot Guy, episode 295. Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 325 in the Embassy Suites recording studios in downtown Louisville, Kentucky. In this episode, an update on the CPDLC issue, runway status lights, Air Force could recall up to 1,000 retired pilots. Watch out, Colonel Jeff. And not again. Air Canada, San Francisco, well, that and more, including the latest Plain Tales installment, The 49ers Part 2. So get all settled in, tray tables and seat backs in their upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 295 is ready for pushback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, an aviation podcast where we talk aviation. All aspects of it, actually, but we kind of focus mostly on the airline world because most of us here, your crew, are airline pilots. And joining me today, we have from the Carolinas a doctor and a marathon runner, skydiver, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated pilot, Dr. Steph.
The lone non-actual airline pilot here. So,
yeah,
but
I said most of us. But,
you said most
there
of
are
us.
exceptions. You're very
Exactly.
exceptional.
I'm the exception.
Yeah.
So, but hey, look, it's 2 weeks in a row that I've been able to join you. So I'm starting a new streak here. It's very exciting. Very
Awesome.
happy to be back and looking forward to a fantastic show this evening.
We're looking forward to it as well. And also joining us from across the pond, an Airbus wide-body pilot. You can hear the Airbus sounds in the background there. This is from our APG community member Nevsky in Norway. He sent this to us a while back, and it's an awesome little piece of intro music for Nick. Nick is, as I mentioned, the wide-body Airbus captain for a European carrier, also a former RAF and RAAF fighter pilot. Hello, Nick.
Enough of the wide body there, Jeff. That's twice in one intro.
That's an ultra wide body. But you're not a wide body. You're a skinny guy.
Oh, well, if only I could claim to that. No, it's lovely to be back on this show. Thank you very much. And I was going to start off by calling you all Catholic terrorists because I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have recently discovered that the term "guy," when you're referring to a bunch of guys, comes from the terrorist who tried to blow up Parliament on November the 5th back in the 1600s, whose name, of course, was Guy Fawkes. And that word, his Christian name, has moved on down through the centuries until it emerged in your country as a generic term for people, our friends, etc. So I won't use it in its old-fashioned term. I will use it in its modern term. It's great to be back on the show. Hi, guys.
Excellent.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, Guy Fawkes. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. And that's November 5th. What's the little saying that you guys say for
remember
November 5th?
the 5th of November.
Ah, there we go.
Something and plot. I don't know. I can't quite remember that. I know I used to do that. We used to get kids coming around with a guy, which is a sort of effigy of Guy Fawkes in a wheelbarrow, and they'd knock on your door and ask for a penny, or actually nowadays they ask for £1 to help them collect money to buy fireworks, because every town usually has a big bonfire and a big fireworks night, and it's kind of celebrated that this guy didn't succeed in blowing up the king and all of Parliament.
He was quite upset.
He was, but he wasn't much to do with aviation, so perhaps we ought to put that back in history.
All right, we'll steer it back to aviation then.
Exactly.
Well, let's see. Why don't we start off with what have you been up to, Sir Nick?
Well, I have had a relatively quiet time. I did a long flight back from the Caribbean, where I was called out to on, I don't know, about 5 days ago. Been to Barbados, and that it was a bit of a killer. I tell you what, when you're getting airborne around like midnight, and then you've got an 8-hour flight all through the night ahead of you, it can be a little bit dispiriting. But we got into Gatwick a reasonable time, and I've had a few days to recover, so feeling good. I've been making slow gin. So that's a mixture that is a lovely Christmas drink. You get sloes, which are a kind of berry off a blackthorn tree, and you put them into a container with lots of gin, and you leave it there for a few months. And when it comes out, mix it up with a little bit of sugar syrup, and it turns into a lovely liqueur. And then it makes a great Christmas present. So that's what I've been doing today.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Steph? What have you been up to? You know, you say slow gin. If I drink a lot of gin, it makes me go slow. That's
some people
probably not the same.
Can go very fast, but I don't know.
Oh.
Perhaps you're the exception to the rule, Jeff. I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's directly proportional to how much you've consumed.
There you go. There's the doctor speaking.
Yes. So, I'm sorry, Jeff. Did you ask me a question?
I did. I sort of did. Then I kind of
a really complicated one. Like, how are you?
I backtracked.
Oh, how am I? What have I been up to?
Well, hang on. Well, hold that thought.
Okay.
Hold that thought. We're having a little technical break here. I just remembered that I didn't remember to send out a push notification.
Oh, yes, we should do
here,
that. I actually thought about asking you to do that, and then I forgot.
APG 295.
There's a lot of forgetting going on here. It's good job it's not my responsibility.
I'm a very forgetful person recording.
I'm going to make a new checklist right now and put it on the computer.
Right now. Yeah, I thought you were supposed to read me one or something.
I was. Did I actually make that checklist? No.
No, I'm guessing not. Okay, let me find the address here to this. You're probably going to hear something.
I'm not a gin fan either, Liz, but a lot of people are. I mean, in fact, I've made a liter of slow vodka for myself, but it doesn't sound quite as nice as slow gin, I think.
I'd be interested to try it. I like gin.
Well, I would send a bottle your way, except that it's going to be a bit hard. So
I'm not entirely sure that's legal either.
Oh, it would be. I can bring a liter of spirits into the States when I come in, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I've got really nice glass barrels, little mini glass barrels with a tap on the front. Sits in a little wooden cradle, and I shall put the gin into that when I've finished making it, and then tie it with a ribbon and give it away as presents to friends.
So did I hear somebody's one of your devices kind of make some kind of a sound from the push?
No.
Or am I just imagining things? Okay.
I did
See if
not
anybody
get
in the chat room got one. Raise your hand in the chat room if
I
you
have
just
been
got.
getting them, but I did not get one this time.
Okay.
No, I didn't get one. Let me actually open up the app to see. Does it do anything if I open up the app?
Oh, Glenn says he got one. If you're in New Zealand, apparently you have to be in New Zealand to get them. Still no push. Yeah.
Nope.
No push for Liz. No push for me. No push for Steph. Nor. So it's just Glenn. I'm glad that Glenn is getting the push notifications.
No, Flight Radar 24 is telling me all about these people with emergencies, but apart from that.
All right, well, that's not really important right now to us. It is to them. All right. Yeah. Now let me go over here to this.
So it's working on Android, but apparently not iOS.
Not on iOS, so yeah. Ron Swart got one. Good. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I think it has something to do with certificates and Apple developer stuff. So I need to contact our friend Paul, the app guy, and maybe he can help me with this. Okay, moving on. So Steph, what have you been up to?
Since last Wednesday, actually not a whole lot. After a month of just being on the go kind of nonstop, I had a weekend of just staying at home, and we had a lovely weekend weather-wise. So went out on the boat a little bit and just spent some time with family. So not a whole lot to report here, but it was nice and relaxing. And work has been crazy because we're getting to that busy time of year. I think I mentioned that before too. So
yeah, the time of year where everybody's trying to get all the health
all
stuff
their
in.
stuff done before the end of the year. So they've got about 2 months and a week to do that, minus all the holidays. So
see, I'm such a procrastinator. I'm thinking this is like way sooner than you really need to be doing this stuff. I wait until like mid-December.
Well,
and then of course all the offices are closed.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem.
Forgive me,
well, you got to figure.
I thought you had to wait till you had something wrong with you before you went to the doctor.
Well,
technically,
or like an eye exam or something like that. There's nothing wrong
well,
with you.
it's like elective things where stuff that doesn't have to be done, but you're going to wait until you've done the other necessary things and you don't owe anything out of pocket, and then go do the other stuff basically for cheap or free.
Yeah, but there's still effectively got to be something wrong that you've got to wait all this time, and then eventually go, oh, thank heaven for that. I can go and have this bit of elective surgery done.
Oh, you don't have to have anything wrong with you to go to the doctor and get stuck by needles by Dr. Steph. That's fun.
Oh, you do Botox on the side. I didn't realize that, Steph.
Not entirely true. Not entirely. Yes. No. But I mean, yeah, it's not, the life or death stuff. So sometimes it tends to take less of a priority. So, but anyway, it'll be busy for me at work over the next couple months. So
yeah. So enjoy the slack time right now, right? Or when you have time off.
Exactly. So
okay. Excellent. Nick, is it coming up this weekend, the Goodwood Meetup, or has it already occurred?
No, it's coming up this weekend. I went down to Goodwood yesterday, I think it was. And you were going to say something, Steph?
Oh, Steph.
Yeah, you know what? Can we back up and do my whole segment over again? Because that's not true at all. I went to Chicago on Sunday, and I completely forgot that I did that. And I need to.
All right.
We just start over.
Take two.
Take two.
So, Steph, have you been up to anything lately?
So, not a whole lot, but I did take a trip to Chicago on Sunday, which, this is my take two, because I've been doing so much traveling that just kind of got like blocked off in my mind into everything else that I've been doing. It was just a little day trip. We went to see the Carolina Panthers play the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field, and it was not a very good football game. So I think the Chicago Bears defense scored most of the points in that game. But it was still a fun time. Got to see some cousins that were actually at the game, and uneventful flights to and from Chicago on the same day. And I think we're going to talk about some more exciting flights that I've taken recently in just a little bit. But I also did want to mention that while I was in Chicago, I saw a tweet from none other than the other Captain Jeff, Lieutenant Colonel Jeff. And Jeff Felmuth, was in Chicago on a layover, and I had a chance to stop by his hotel and just say hi to him real quick. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah, not expecting that, but it was a great way to end off the day. So beyond that, just a lot of family time and staying busy at work. So.
All right. So in my notes here, I have like some upcoming meetup stuff. And one of those is something that's happening in your neck of the woods, Nick, this weekend?
Oh, most certainly. We are meeting up at a local aerodrome, and I went down there yesterday. I think it was yesterday or the day before, to have a look round and chat to the people who run the little cafe there. And it's quite a small grass aerodrome, but it's got a lot of history that stretches back really mainly, I guess, to the Second World War. Goodwood was part of the Tangmere sector of fighters that took part during the Battle of Britain. Well, they took part through the whole war, but they had a couple of Spitfire squadrons based there. And so it's got a lot of history. It's a lovely little airfield, and we're getting together with as many people who can make it. And we're meeting at the Goodwood Aero Club Cafe, which is in the old control tower. So the entrance to the airfield is on the east side, down Clay Pit Lane if you're driving in. And if you go down there, you can pull into the entrance of the aerodrome and turn just before you reach the lovely looking tunnel that goes under the racetrack, because Goodwood also has a racetrack, because it has a lot of motor racing history involved. And turn left there and drive down past the little shop to the old control tower, and you'll find us there in the cafe. It looks like a lovely little spot. And more importantly, Richard Adams is going to meet me down there a little earlier in the morning, and he's going to take me for a flight. He's a private pilot, and he's flying on down, and we're going to get together, and then we're going to go for a little flight in the local area, perhaps take a look at the Isle of Wight. So I'm praying the weather's going to be good. Going to take my camera and, of course, my recorder, and next time we get together, hopefully I'll have a little meet-up recording for you. Oh yeah, and the Plain Talking UK guys, Matt and Carlos, plus many other listeners of both shows will be down there. Looking forward to seeing everybody.
Oh, I can't wait to hear all about it.
It'll be good, I'm sure.
Yeah, sounds like
the weather's good. Thanks.
Now, in the Atlanta area, we're going to have a little, it's not going to be like a huge thing like what you're describing for this Sunday at Goodwood. I love saying that. We're doing a little meetup here in Atlanta because one of our honored APG community members is going to be in the Atlanta area. In fact, he's in the Atlanta area right now. And on Friday night, we're going to meet up with Dave Abbey, the aforementioned APG community member. And I think Dispatcher Mike and myself, and who knows who else will be heading, because I haven't looked at the RSVP list, so I'm not sure how many, who's going to show up. I think, oh, wait a minute. I think Chris Cochran, he was at the meetup that we had at the 57th Fighter Group, the last meetup in Atlanta, and others as well, possibly. And if you want to meet up with us, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time at the Manchester Arms Public House in near the airport. I think it's considered College Park on Virginia Avenue. And I'll put information about this in the show notes. Of course, by the time you're hearing this is probably going to be history. So if you're listening to us live right now and you happen to be in the Atlanta area and you want to join up with some fellow Av geeks, again, that's the Manchester Arms Public House on Virginia Avenue. Let's see. Now, last week, Dr. Steph, you were alluding to something that happened with you on a flight somewhere, and you weren't sure if you could talk about that yet at that time.
Yeah, and I can talk about it, but I'm gonna be kind of vague with the details because you'll see why in a minute. But it has to do with the fact that I gave my contact info to the airline in question, but I've not heard anything from them, and I don't know at this point if I ever will or not.
Would you rather wait a little bit longer, or okay?
I think it's okay to talk about because I'm not going to give any, any real specifics.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. But I think it's an interesting story, and it's something that I've certainly talked about a whole lot in the past. And certainly, I've had lots of questions from listeners and other people who know me. The question is always, as a physician, have you ever been called upon to attend to a medical emergency on an aircraft? And up until 2 weeks ago, the answer was no. But that changed. So we had just boarded a flight, domestic flight here in the US. Again, I'm not going to really mention the airline or destinations or anything, kind of keep it to some general details. But I just sat down. I managed to snag an upgrade. So I was sitting all the way in row 1, and it was kind of a late flight. So I was kind of curling up with a blanket and thinking about falling asleep with my head against the window of this lovely Airbus A319. And we could kind of start to hear some commotion from maybe halfway back in the cabin. Again, completely full flight, had just fully boarded. I don't think the doors had closed yet. We hadn't gone anywhere. We were still sitting at the gate, kind of late at night. And the gentleman next to me was kind of paying attention to what was going on. He could hear the commotion, and someone started, saying, well, call for medical help or a doctor. So he actually stood up and started moving to the back of the cabin, and I went up and got up and went with him. So the two of us got back there, and we were met by a third person who turned out to be a respiratory therapist. The gentleman next to me was actually an emergency room physician. And we encountered another passenger who was kind of slumped back in his seat and not responding. And, we were trying to figure out, see if he would be responsive and do some basic assessments, see if anyone was with him. At the moment, he seemed to be alone. We actually got him down into the aisle of the aircraft, determined he did not have a pulse, wasn't breathing. And basically, we started doing CPR on this gentleman. At some point, a family member showed up who really only had information that the patient had kind of a heart history and didn't really know much else about his medical problems. But while we're doing that, I was the one who started doing the actual CPR and chest compressions. The respiratory therapist that was there was trying to work on the patient's airway, but it was, you imagine the aisleway in an A319, it's really pretty tiny. And this guy was, I don't know what, his history was, but he was kind of a big guy, not, overweight or obese, but more like a large basketball player, older gentleman. So not a lot of space in the aisleway there. Again, completely full flight, and people were all in their seats. So people were trying to get out of the way, kind of. I was sitting kind of in between, or in a a row of seats and trying to do chest compressions. And the emergency room doctor was going through the medical kit to see what might be useful. A flight attendant showed up with the automatic external defibrillator. And so while I was doing chest compressions, I think the respiratory therapist ended up putting that on. And we went from there, and we went through about 5 cycles of CPR with the defibrillator before any paramedics ever showed up. So that's almost 10 minutes. We gave 3 shocks with the AED, and then it didn't really advise anymore after that. The medical kit was left a little something to be desired. There was equipment in there, but a lot of it was more for emergencies where the person would be more responsive, and you know, in terms of some of the stuff we might have expected for advanced cardiac life support, there was one small vial of epinephrine, which was actually difficult to use because it had to be drawn up and it only had a small needle with it. There were a couple of IVs that you could try to start, which we made a couple attempts at starting those, which got dislodged just because of motion and space. And it just was not a great situation in terms of trying to manage an emergency like that and trying to resuscitate someone. So, yeah, I mean, fortunately, we were still at the gate. The paramedics did show up. We were able to get the gentleman off the aircraft, you know, and then there was, they were still working on him as they left. And I don't know the outcome. Like I said, I'm still kind of waiting to see if anything's going to be come of that, and because I gave them my contact information for if they need any more information from me or anything else along those lines. What else? Oh, and then so after all of that was said and done, you know, the commotion of all of that, getting everyone back in their seats and cleaning everything up, they had to replace the AED, they had to replace the medical kit. All of that kind of took time. Again, this was kind of late at night. While they were doing all of that, our crew timed out. So then we had to get off the plane. And I was like, well, I don't think I'm getting back on a flight tonight. But amazingly, they had a replacement crew for us, and we actually switched aircraft to a much newer A319. And we had about a 3-hour delay because of all of that. So it was definitely an interesting situation. I kind of wish I knew the outcome, but you know,
so that crew must have been like, was it the cabin crew or the pilot crew or both?
Pilot crew.
They must have started earlier in the day then, huh?
Yep. This was one of the last flights leaving for the night. So yeah.
So obviously all this training and everything else just kicked in, and you probably
and I mean, it was
anything, but
yeah, no, I mean, it was just, you know, that's the 3 of us. That's just our jobs. You know, it's not certainly something that I do on a day-to-day basis. The ER doc does. And, you know, when I found out what he did and he found out what I did, you know, we had a really quick agreement. You're the one who's running this basically, you know, and we're going to do whatever you ask us to do, because there's still this element of, you know, kind of CRM type of stuff. You need to have a team, you need to be working together, you need to be doing stuff that makes sense and is logical and orderly. And it's nice to have someone who's leading the team, and that should be the one who does that on a regular basis. And that was the emergency room doc. So,
and I would imagine it's much like our job of flying airplanes, and when something goes wrong, you're not sitting there reflecting on how you feel at the moment. It's like,
no, not at all. You just do it.
This,
yeah. I mean, we just both got, I mean, no one had actually made like a call for anything when all of this started. It was just, we were kind of paying attention. He was paying attention more so than I was. So I'm thankful for that, because he got up and I kind of just vaguely overheard what was starting to happen. So I just went with him, and yeah. So
cool.
Well, the patient was very lucky to have 3 experts on hand, particularly an ER doctor, and the fact that all of you would know what to do is absolutely brilliant. So I guess he was in the best possible circumstances, considering.
Yeah, I mean, considering all of it, but I mean, that's just a really tough place to have a medical emergency like that. And I'm really thankful that we weren't actually in the air already, because that would have made it just that much harder. So.
Oh golly, yes. And 2 shocks and then no shock advised does not sound.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound very optimistic. We did 3 shocks and then 2 shocks not advised before the paramedics showed up. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
but
that's very sad.
You know, it was still I mean, huge kudos to everyone that was helping out. It was hard work. It was in a rather warm location in the US, and it was hot on the aircraft, and everyone was kind of, it's a very fatiguing process to work on someone and do CPR like that. And we had a lot of help. I was doing the chest compressions, the ER doc did chest compressions, and one of the cabin crew actually jumped in and did chest compressions too. So that was good. And we kind of rotated and took turns.
Yeah. Having done the same with a neighbor of mine who unfortunately didn't survive. I know both Jilly and I, who are both working on him at length, both suffered quite a lot of muscle pain on our necks and shoulders afterwards, because it's not something you're familiar with doing, and so your muscles aren't really attuned to it. But,
yeah. No, it's a lot of hard physical work to do that.
Yeah, so. But it's a small thing to do to try and save someone's life.
Yeah, there was a question about what age the patient was, or the gentleman was. He was older. I don't know exactly. So, but I'd probably guess at least 60s, but I'm not certain. So.
No. Well, there you go. They're for the grace of God.
Exactly.
And so, as you said, you're really not sure the disposition.
No,
of the
not sure of the disposition. And like I said, I'm not giving a whole lot of, there are more details, but I'm not giving those on purpose just because of patient identification stuff and whatnot. So
exactly.
Yeah.
You're such a good person, Steph.
Well, I do what I can. So, I think it's what any one of us would have done in the same situation. So
yeah.
Very
well,
much.
Awesome. Well, that was thank you for sharing that with us.
It was
cool.
It was interesting to say the least. So
yeah.
And it was funny because then the ER doctor and I were sitting next to each other. So we sat down and actually had kind of a long talk and debrief about everything, and we even talked with the cabin crew about stuff that we would have for suggestions, and we've sent some emails, just things that we thought could have maybe made the whole process a little bit. I mean, it's never going to be perfect in a situation like that, but there were some things that we thought could have been suggestions or helpful for future incidents. So
yeah,
very cool. Very cool. And you said that the airline, not identifying the airline, was pretty open to like your suggestions for
they actually came and asked us. So
very nice. That's good.
Both the cabin crew and then the I'm assuming it was a supervisor at one of the gate agents came and talked to us too. So
that's encouraging.
Yeah, it was.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking of encouraging, yay, we've talked about EFBs. Here's my EFB if you're watching the video. It's made by Microsoft Corporation, and Acme has been using these now for, I don't know, a couple of years. And there have been rumors to the effect that we are going to be switching hardware platforms. And the rumor was confirmed just last week when flight operations sent out a memo saying that next year, May of next year, a lot of the news reports that I read said early next year, but I'm thinking May is not really early, 2018, to me anyway. And of course, that's when it's going to be starting the replacement of the current Microsoft Surface tablets to the iPad Pro, 10.5-inch iPad Pros, which I'm very excited about because I'm a big Apple proponent, especially of their.
I'm actually surprised that they went for the Pro. That seems like a little bit of overkill on the size.
Yes, it is, but it's not the 12.5-inch.
Oh, okay. I actually didn't realize it.
Because Apple just recently, they did have one that was like exactly the same size as the iPad, but it was the Pro version. And then they have the big mom, Big Daddy, the 12-something inch, which is, you're right, that's just too big. But they came out with a size kind of between the two, a 10.5-inch size.
I hope you don't find it just a little unwieldy on the flight deck, because I think the iPad size is just about perfect. But I guess we could find room for something bigger. But we've got quite a big cockpit on a Mad Dog, perhaps. I don't know. How much space do you have on that? It looks like a pencil,
there's plenty
so it must be quite small.
Yeah, well, the Surface that we're using right now is about it's 10-something inches. I mean, it's roughly the same size as what we're using right now, maybe a little bit bigger.
Well, at least with the Pro, it'll have a decent processor, and hopefully it'll last for quite a few years before it starts to slow up.
Right, exactly.
Good job.
And,
well, that's good
so
news.
I'm excited about that.
Now they're going to change the
Very
software.
good news. No, I mean, we're using the same software. It's just a different platform.
Okay.
It's the Jeppesen Flight Deck Pro software that we're using now, that you're using.
All right. Yeah, yeah. It's just that we've just acquired a new piece of software to actually give us our paperwork. It's funny that
we don't do
still
that
call it
stuff.
paperwork.
Yeah.
Which is I used for the first time on my last trip, and I was really quite impressed. It works extremely well. So I mean, it's nothing more than an electronic version, but it's a lot more flexible than a piece of paper because you can like zoom in and put more information on it, and you can easily transfer the route across to the Flight Deck Pro. It's just a bit simpler.
I think that there are going to be some new apps because it doesn't translate exactly from the Windows platform to the Mac platform. And the other nice thing I think is that they're going to be the Wi-Fi and cellular equipped models, and I think that Acme is envisioning this to be our like go-to device for communications and everything else. So it's going to be a very interesting experience, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's excellent. The CAA have finally agreed to let us use these EFBs as our only source of information. So over the next few weeks, they're actually going to take all the paper off the flight deck, all the manuals and books which we've had in there as a standby just in case something goes wrong with your EFB. And now we're just going to have a standby EFB just to use. So that'll take a lot of weight off, and you multiply that by the number of sectors you do and the amount of fuel you use to carry it around. That'll save a lot of money. Yeah,
very, very cool. All right. I had a quick little meetup in Baltimore. I picked up, let's see, I should play this. I was going green. I went green. Got a green slip over the weekend, leaving on Sunday night. Was it Sunday night? Yeah, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So right before this 3-day trip that I'm on right now. And green slip, if you're new to this airline world, especially the Acme world, means that they pay you double, or they give you double credit for the flying that you do. So if the trip is worth 15 and a half hours, 15.45, I guess, then you double it. So it's a good deal, overtime pay. And ended up in Baltimore late, actually early morning, Monday morning, but after I got some sleep, met up with First Officer Craig and Hillel, and they met up with me at the hotel. We walked over, along with my First Officer Brent, over to a place called Mrs. Shirley's, which I guess is kind of a popular place in the region, and had a great breakfast, and really had a lot of fun. And I made a recording with my phone, and apparently I probably didn't push the button or something. I don't have anything here, so it was like 4 seconds. Wasn't really enough to get the context of anything. So sorry about that.
Tell me, Jeff, what do you do for your hobby? You sort of run a podcast and
record stuff.
I don't know what the heck I'm doing anymore with anything actually in my life. Leave me alone.
That's all right.
I was enjoying just being
past weekend, so we're all doing really well.
Yeah, well, one of these days I say, practice makes perfect. Perfect. I can't even say that.
Practice makes perspex. What's that all about?
I don't know. And finally, speaking of First Officer Craig, while we were walking back from the restaurant and we paused to make a recording, that didn't take, he said, "Hey, I came up with this cool idea." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to send you some audio feedback, and then you can play it on the show, and everybody will know about my great idea." So here's first a great idea. I don't have it in my play thing. Where'd it go?
Jesus,
apparently I didn't
go well today, Jeff.
Oh, man, this is terrible. You know what? I thought it was going to go really well because I did a lot more prep work than I normally do.
I know.
The show notes look great.
Thanks. All right. Where is it? Let me just make sure it's not over here. Maybe I just forgot to... Hang on. So it's a good thing we're doing this on a Wednesday because it's going to be like Tuesday of next week by the time I finish editing.
It's
That's
going to
fine.
be Thursday before I get to bed at this rate.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. Apologies for that. But you knew what you were getting into.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's not there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, it's a very risky thing to do. I'm going to turn on the echo button. And you may have to remind me to turn the echo button off after I play Craig's feedback. So here we go, turning it on and going to play this from Craig.
Hey APGers, it's FO Craig here. As most of you know, month of October, which it currently is right now, a lot of people you maybe see around are wearing pink for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and that's a great thing, and I help support it by wearing a pink tie and pink epaulets on the flight line. I also have donated a little bit of funds to breast cancer awareness research and whatnot. So with November coming up, November is Men's Health Awareness Month as far as just general men's health, testicular cancer, prostate cancer. And so with Captain Jeff's blessing, I went ahead and started Captain Jeff's Mustache Crew with a company called Movember Foundation. And what they do is they support and raise awareness and research of general men's health, testicular and prostate cancer by you can donate money as well as just show pride. Like in October you wear pink for breast cancer awareness. In November you can do a no shave November or a Movember and grow out a mustache or facial hair or whatever what kind of facial hair trimmings you'd like to do. I plan to grow out my best Captain Jeff mustache. I don't think I'll be as good as his, but I'll definitely give it my best try. I'll give this link to Captain Jeff to put in the show notes, but it is https moteam.co/captain-jeff-s-mustache-crew. And again, I'll put Captain Jeff down in the show notes. And it's a team that I created for all the APG community, for those males who want to grow out the facial hair. I don't know, maybe we've got some females that want to do that too, but if you can create your own kind of page on this website and post a picture of your mustache or your progress throughout the month of November, and you can also donate money. For the Captain Jeff's Mustache Crew, I set the mark at $1,000. I already donated $10 to help kind of get this thing moving. So feel free to reach out to Captain Jeff and he can forward it to me, or feel free to reach out to me for more information. I'm at Greenhorn CFI on Twitter, or FO Craig. I'm Craig Pizek on Facebook, and so just feel free to reach out or to me or Captain Jeff. And if the link doesn't work for some reason, or if got any questions, I hope that we can get a good group of people to join this, and love to see what everybody's best impersonation of Captain Jeff's mustache is. Thanks for listening. Great job on the show, guys. I love it, and just looking forward. You're coming up on 300 episodes. Looking forward to another 300. So this is FO Craig signing out. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you, Craig. And I do have the echo button off, so we're back to normal now. So, hey, that worked out. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Nick. I see that in the chat room.
He just wants to make absolutely certain before he tries to say anything.
Yeah, exactly. I find it a wee bit disconcerting. Now, I'm not going to cut any of my hair off, and if I grow any more, I just don't know if you're going to be able to see it. I could grow some buggers grips. I don't know. What do you reckon about that?
What is that?
I'm not sure what that is. Is that some kind of a vegetable that you grow in the garden?
Family
no, yeah, I probably couldn't. Yeah, they're little patches of hair that appear up on your cheeks.
Oh.
If you shave your cheeks, Jeff, as you know, if you leave the little patches up here on your cheeks, they will actually grow quite long. And
no, I don't.
No, I used to know a fighter pilot who used to have a pair of those. But
And what are they called?
I won't repeat it actually because it's a bit rude.
Okay.
So
Send me a text
they're
because I'm not familiar
they're called
with it.
little patches of hair on your cheeks.
Yep.
All right.
Grip people with. You can grip them if you want.
Like,
All right. Well, I'm gonna put that link that First Officer Craig gave us in that audio in the show notes. So if you want to join the fun and frivolity, and everybody's talking about my mustache as if it's like a separate entity and it has a life of its own.
It does move around a bit, you know. It looks a bit like one of those caterpillars you see, you know, very hairy caterpillar.
Okay, all right, I can go with that. All right, well, thank you, FO Craig, for that, and check it out if you want to this Movember challenge. All right, let's see. Anything else before we move on?
oh, I don't think so.
I can't think of anything.
Let's do this then.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee, I love tea, I love the Java and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup. What the heck? Why are we singing the Java on an aviation podcast? Well, it's because if you want to support the show financially, you donate to the Coffee Fund. And Java, Jive, Coffee, get it? You might want to join us in the Coffee Fund cadre, and information about how you can do that is at airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. And since the last show, we have had a few folks help us out with contributions to the fund. And let's see, let me pull this up from the Coffee Fund Classic method. We have somebody named M. Reem gave us a nice donation. Thank you very much, M. And the other way to support the show, which is becoming more and more popular, it's the company called Patreon, and you can become a patron of the show at Patreon. And that means pledging a certain amount per episode, and it can be as little as $1 or as much as $2 per episode if you have a lot of dough and you really are enthusiastic about our show. And we do have a couple of those folks, actually, so we do thank them very much for that. And we do have some new patrons since the last episode, and let me read their names: William Jan, Philip Crew, and Tyler Tolman. So we have 3 new producers over there at the Patreon page supporting the Airline Pilot Guy show. And as I said, we really, really do appreciate your donations to the show. Again, more information about how you can contribute and become a member of the Coffee Fund cadre is at airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. I love the APG community, coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Boy.
Stand by for news.
Okay, we do have some items in the news. And I'm stopping for a moment. I guess the bandwidth is kind of sucky.
Yeah, it was.
But during the whole coffee fund, it was not great.
Ooh, and you're kind of coming in muffled.
That's my fault. I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's
okay.
better.
So
My
What
bad.
happens?
wow, so that little switch only brings it
It
down.
only brings it down that much. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Because I can clearly hear you when you're. Yeah, it's just like.
All right. Sorry. Yeah, it just brings it down, I guess.
Huh. Yeah.
But
interesting. Yeah. So when I started the show, it was pretty good. I did a nice speed test, and I was getting some good numbers. But this is that time of night when everybody's coming back from their conference and they're firing up Netflix and FaceTime and that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that's why all of a sudden the bandwidth is going to.
Yeah, you're great
Making
at
them
this very moment,
best.
but you were scoping out quite badly, and we got a few gaps.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys have been, most likely because of my bandwidth, have also been kind of in and out as well. So luckily we have backup recording. So the audio podcast should sound pretty decent, but oh well.
Yeah, it's just going to be out in 3 weeks' time by the time you stick it all together.
Yeah, it may not even
it
come
may
out.
never
I might
even
just
see the
get
light of day. Just
overwhelmed and think, forget it.
Yeah.
screw it.
Okay. Screw it.
This is too hard.
I'm over this podcasting thing. I'm gonna move on with something else.
Take out snake charming, mate.
Okay. So where is my window with all the stuff in it? Oh, there it is.
It's buried under. You need to do that 4-finger swipe.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Let's see. I guess we're right here. Okay. Let's start off with, I think it was last episode, we talked about the CPDLC Iridium ban. Several of the oceanic centers, ATC centers, decided to ban airplanes using Iridium SATCOM. And this from Larry Geezer. He said last week, we reported on an equipment issue with Iridium SATCOM that prompted a ban by a number of oceanic ATC agencies. Some aircraft were receiving massively delayed clearances sent by ATC via CPDLC, which is, let's see, controller, pilot, data, link communications, I believe.
Yeah, sounds good.
And one took the instruction and climbed 1,000 feet. Oh, even though the message was meant for the flight the aircraft operated previously. Uh-oh. Anyway, today we checked in again with the oceanic ATC centers to see what their current policy is on the issue. And I'm not sure exactly what the date is on this. And again, this is from Flight Standards Bureau, I believe. Yeah, Flight Service Bureau. There we go. And looks like the Shanwick told the Flight Service Bureau that they are aware of the issue, reviewed it, but have decided not to ban the use of Iridium for either CPDLC or ADSC just yet. LPPO, which is Santa Maria, have the same position. So in this airspace, you can use Iridium for now. Gander, CZQX, said they did a safety analysis of it and decided not to ban it. They have all kinds of conformance alerts in place to prevent any problems from happening. So if aircraft deviate, they get notified immediately. Reykjavik aren't concerned about the issue at all. They use HF most of the time anyway, it says, according to the Flight Service Bureau. Chile, Japan, Anchorage, Oakland, New York, all these centers have published NOTAMs instructing crews not to use Iridium for CPDLC or ADSC until the fault's fixed. And Auckland and Brazil have applied the ban to CPDLC alone. Use ADSC if you like. From Iridium themselves, they told the Flight Service Bureau, we've updated their queue management system. Every minute there is a queue check. If there is any message that is older than 4 minutes, it marks as timed out and will not be delivered. This update was done at ground level, so it does not require any software updates by the user. We're still waiting on feedback from FAA work group on the fix, and it's sufficient to allow use of Iridium ADSC. All right, so there's your update on that for those of you who fly internationally and it is pertinent. Let's see. This I thought was interesting. In the U.S., the U.S. government is urging the world airline community to ban large personal electronic devices like laptops from checked luggage because of the potential for catastrophic fire. The FAA said in a paper filed recently with a UN agency that its tests show that when a laptop's rechargeable lithium-ion battery overheats in close proximity to an aerosol spray can, it can cause an explosion capable of disabling an airliner's fire suppression system. The fire could then rage unchecked, leading to the loss of the air, paper said. And so they conducted, 10 tests involving a fully charged laptop packed in a suitcase. A heater was placed against the laptop's battery to force it into thermal runaway, a condition in which the battery's temperature continually rises. In one test, an 8-ounce aerosol can of dry shampoo, which is permitted in checked baggage, was strapped to the laptop. There was a fire almost immediately, and it grew rapidly. The aerosol can exploded within 40 seconds. Anyway, they go on and talk about these tests and the fact that it overwhelms the halon suppression system in all these cargo bays, and that they think that this is something that be adopted worldwide, that no longer allow the use of the, or not the use of, but carrying large electronic devices, personal electronic devices like laptops in the checked holds. Go ahead.
Just a couple of comments, Jeff. I mean, they're first of all a bit misleading when they say that the explosion is capable of disabling an aircraft's fire suppression system. No, it's not going to disable it. The fire suppression system will work fine. It may not be sufficient to overcome the intensity of the fire, is what they mean, which actually they explain a bit later on. But I must admit, putting a computer in my checked luggage is something I would never do. Once it disappears into that conveyor system and gets passed through the hands of...
Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly right.
Hope you enjoyed your time with that. That
I mean, Heathrow didn't get the nickname Thief Row for nothing, you know. Wow. That was during a particularly bad period. But, I mean, whether you see your case again or not, or whether it's just been rifled through, I don't know. But I'd never trust my an expensive laptop to my luggage.
Yeah, that's just kind of strange that you would
put
something like that in.
What it does, though, is that if you've got it in your hand baggage, and they start refusing hand baggage in the cabin, as they do on the smaller commuters when the head boxes all fill up and things, that may prevent them from insisting that it goes in the cargo bay. That's about the only restriction I can really think. I
mean, it's it's always funny to me nowadays when I see someone pull out a laptop and start like furiously working on spreadsheets and documents and things on an airplane. It's just, I have a laptop. The only time I ever use it is when we're actually doing this show. I just do everything else from my phone or an iPad because it can all be done there, and it's just so much more portable and easy to use. I mean, I guess for certain lines of work, it's important to have the laptop and a full keyboard and things like that, and you need to be productive on a flight. But I don't know. It just seems like maybe we're moving away from laptops anyway for stuff like that.
Well, it's kind of hard to do what I do on my laptop on an airplane, which is like do audio editing.
Right.
It's possible to do it on tablets and that kind of thing, but it doesn't work as well as the real computer. So,
right.
Yeah.
But for most people, I think that as you say, Steph, iPads and iPhones or mobile devices.
Like even I send a lot of emails and things like that. I do it all from my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm more surprised when I see people opening their full-size laptop to send emails on a flight or work on emails on a flight. I'm like, you could do that on your phone or your
But they don't have their thumbs aren't quite as flexible as yours, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. All right. Regarding this, armchair pilot Jeff Gibson sent us feedback regarding this ban or potential ban or recommended ban, I guess I should say. I'm writing. He's a longtime listener to APG, and he said, as a personal note, I especially like the episodes that detail flight systems and compares different kinds of aircraft, but that is neither here nor there. Yeah, that sounds like the one of our APG crew members who specializes in that kind of stuff. And we agree. We miss that too. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so he continues, I'm writing this to you as a concerned passenger. I'm reading news articles that talk about the danger of lithium batteries that are checked in the luggage, such as laptops, etc. But there is a new kind of luggage that I believe is equally a threat even without the laptop, quote unquote, smart luggage, which contains integrated lithium batteries of their own, typically used to recharge the owner's phones and tablets, have gone unmentioned in the media and FAA safety reports. I fear it's only a matter of time until one of these forgotten batteries embedded in the smart luggage starts a cargo hold fire. I tried to voice my concern to the FAA so that they could include this new hazard in their battery studies. However, it must have become lost and bemused by the... No, he became lost and bemused by the FAA website. Do you know the proper place to voice such a concern?
Yes, the Airline Pilot Guy show.
Yeah, there you go. But it's probably
it may not go any further than that. Between us three, though.
I know we have people that work at the FAA that listen to the show. Perhaps they could... you can do it anonymously if you want. Because,
I'm sure there's a way to send... whether that concern is ever acknowledged. But if that's kind of one of those squeaky wheel gets the grease type of a thing where if you say it often enough and loudly enough, it might eventually be acknowledged and there may eventually be something done about it. Liz says she's not aware of smart luggage. I have some smart luggage that you can actually put one of those battery packs into. And I never actually use it in the luggage because it makes the luggage exceptionally heavy. But I think if I wasn't going to be flying, like if I was just going to be traveling somewhere on a overnight trip in my car or something and I needed the extra battery power, I'd probably take it then. But I certainly have lots of little portable battery packs that I'll take with me when I travel that you can use to recharge different devices. I think that kind of falls into the same category because they're not mentioned very often either.
I do know that at my airline, when people, bring their carry-on items and then we run out of overhead bin space and they say, I'm sorry, we're going to have to check your bag for free. But they always mention that take out any valuables, any prescription medication that you may need. And it's amazing how many people don't hear that. And then you get somewhere and they go, oh, I need my bag. And it's going to be at the final destination. As they said, in baggage claim.
Medication that keeps me alive.
I'm a diabetic. Well, did you not hear the part where you're supposed to keep your medication?
And your keys?
Yeah.
Always keep your identification.
And they also mention, lithium ion batteries that you may have in your carry-on, which is permitted. But when they get checked, they need to be removed from that bag. I'm not sure how many people actually remove their stuff because it's amazing to me how they don't really hear all this stuff that you're telling them, especially the part where you will not get your bag outside the aircraft door when you get to wherever we're going. It'll be checked to your final destination baggage claim. So it's confusing out there, though, because a lot of times we serve cities, especially the airplane that I fly, that are also served by some of the regional carriers. And the regional jets,
those will just be gate checked.
Yeah. They gate check them, and then they are back. You wait for them just outside the front door of the airplane, and then you're reunited with your baggage. But it doesn't work that way on mainline, at least at Acme. So,
right.
Anyway.
Well,
Well,
no. Listening skills leave something to be desired this day and age. What? In general.
I was just going to say, Willem in the chat room says the problem is Jeff. They check their hearing aids as well.
They check their brains is what they check.
I'm on vacation. Woo!
And I'm going to walk through the concourse and I'm going to just stop right in the middle. We're going to be going a normal pace.
I'm going to turn around.
I'm going to stop when I get to the top. You're at the top of the escalator and then, you walk 2 feet and then you stop.
Yeah.
No.
All the time.
Keep going.
All the time.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Anyway, thank you. Yes?
Say something very loud at that point.
like what?
Coming through.
What a wonderful place to stop. No one behind you. Don't worry about it. That is the definition of passive aggression right there, too,
there
Jeff, in case you're wondering. So.
Well, I don't think I'd do that.
I do.
But yeah, that's a very energetic use of sarcasm, I'd say.
Yes. Well, it's that too. So.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Moving on. There is a safety alert for operators, a SAFO or SAFO. I don't know how they pronounce it, but it's SAFO.
SAFO.
And I thought this was interesting. And I kind of scratched my head on this one. I'm thinking, huh? So the subject in this safety alert is runway status lights, or RWSL. So it's 3 words, but 4 letters. I guess the RW is for runway. This SAFO refers or serves to ensure that aircraft operators, pilots, and aircraft personnel are aware of the installation, meaning, and use of RWSLs. And the background is the NTSB lists runway safety as one of the top 10 critical transportation issues that need to be addressed to improve safety and save lives. To improve runway safety, the Federal Aviation Administration developed RWSLs, which is a fully automated system that aids in preventing serious runway incursions. The RWSL system integrates airport lighting equipment with approach and surface surveillance radar systems to provide aircraft and vehicle crews a visual signal indicating when it is unsafe to enter or cross or begin, continue, take off on the runway. The installation of RWSLs at some of the nation's busiest and most complex airports will increase crew situational awareness on the airport surface and aid in reducing incidences of serious runway incursions. And so I'm thinking, that's cool. I've seen these. Have you seen these as well, Nick, at some of the airports over here? I'm not sure if they have them.
Yeah, most certainly. I think my eyesight has been permanently damaged by some of them, because when you're sitting there on the threshold and you're told to line up and wait, and because there's crossing traffic going across the runway a bit further down, as he approaches the live runway, the whole world just lights up red in front of you, and it's all these very bright red line of lights down there as he crosses the runway, and then when he gets clear, it just turns itself off. It's a very good system, very clever. I don't suppose it's cheap, but it's certainly effective.
Well, apparently, and I thought that it went into a little bit more detail, but so, okay, that's interesting. We have these runway status lights in use, and I think that every pilot I've flown with has, welcomed them, because again, it's an autonomous system. And I swear I read somewhere that said that people were ignoring them. Is that in this?
What?
Yeah.
How
That's
would they?
the reason why they put this out, is because you cannot disregard
maybe it's not that they were ignoring them, but they just didn't know how they were supposed to be used, and there just needs to be. Are they just asking for more training for it? Education?
Yeah, training and education. But I think so. Here's the deal: you go up, and the tower gives you permission to cross a runway, and then you see these red lights in front of you. Well, I guess some people are assuming that, well, they know the red lights are on, but they're giving me clearance to cross anyway.
To cross, yeah.
And you cannot.
I can see where that would be confusing, though. I mean, I know you cannot, but if you're getting mixed signals like that, if your attention is divided, it's like, well, we were cleared to cross. So yeah. I think just more education is probably the way to go.
But surely the whole purpose is that once they're on, you're not cleared to cross.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I think that's where the education needs to be then. So which set of instructions takes priority. So it's not the verbal instruction you just got. It's, the visual instruction that you're seeing in front of you.
Yeah,
so.
I think.
So I know this sounds like, completely obvious and just a duh statement, but that I can see where that might be confusing for some people, especially if they didn't get good training on it in the first place.
Yeah, so I guess maybe that's the point. They're saying, look, if the reason why these things are going to enhance safety is because they are completely separate from humans. They are using systems that are, and so the tower controller, a human, could make a mistake and give you authorization to do something that may not be safe. And so it makes me mad that when I first got this article, apparently this was like an attachment on the article, the actual safety alert itself, but the article prefaced with the reason why we're putting this thing out here is because we have had several instances pilot ignore the safety devices, and just want to make sure that people understand how important they are.
I mean, obviously, it's a safety alert for a reason because it's happened and it's happening, and it needs to be clarified. So
Yeah. So if you're out there at an airport that has these things, I guess the thing to do is say, okay, I know you just gave me clearance to cross, but I'm seeing these red lights. Did you really want me to? Oh, no, never mind.
you can always key that mic button and ask.
Query.
It never hurts to ask.
Well, here it is from the horse's mouth from the FAA. Whenever a pilot observes the red lights of the runway entrance lights, that pilot will stop at the hold line or along the taxiway path and remain stopped. The pilot will then contact air traffic control for resolution if the clearance is in conflict with the lights. Should pilots note illuminated lights under the circumstances when remaining clear of the runway is impractical, safety reasons, for example, the crew should proceed according to their best judgment, whilst understanding that the illuminated lights indicate the runway is unsafe to enter or cross.
Exactly.
There you go.
So
I didn't even know we had any horses here. It's from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, the Federal
There's
Aviation of
stable out back.
Mouth.
APG headquarters.
Yeah.
Or the FAA
Awesome.
headquarters.
All right. Moving on. This now is Lieutenant Colonel Jeff still with us in the live chat room?
He's not. He had to go.
Oh, too bad. Well, I don't think this is specifically aimed at someone like Jeff and his lack of recency of service, but President Trump signed an executive order Friday allowing the Air Force to recall as many as 1,000 retired pilots to active duty to address a shortage in combat flyers, the White House and Pentagon announced. By law, only 25 retired officers can be brought back to serve in any one branch. Trump's order removes those caps by expanding a state of national emergency declared by President George W. Bush after 9/11, signaling what could be a significant escalation in the 16-year-old global war on terror. We anticipate that the Secretary of Defense will delegate the authority to the Secretary of the Air Force to recall up to 1,000 retired pilots for up to 3 years, Navy Commander Gary Ross, a Pentagon spokesman, said in a statement. But the executive order itself is not specific to the Air Force and could conceivably be used in the future to call up more officers and in other branches. So they go on in this article to talk about the pilot shortage, and it not only affects the civilian flying world, but also the military flying world. And but we think that Colonel Jeff is safe. He's not going to be called back. So
Yeah, I think he'll be fine.
That's quite a lot of pilots to suddenly whip out of the civil world, assuming they've all got jobs with airlines.
True.
Suddenly the industry is 1,000 pilots short. Whoa.
Yes.
I mean, considering we're already facing shortages, I mean, it's going to put some airlines in a very difficult position.
Yeah, it will, for sure. Would one of you like to read this next story, the Malaysia?
Sure.
All right.
Hold on. I got to get to it. Have a second.
Yeah.
And of course, this one's taking forever to load. Cookies on the way. Okay, here we go. Malaysia to resume search for MH370. This is from Flight Global. It says Kuala Lumpur has entered a no fine, no fee agreement with seabed exploration firm Ocean Infinity to resume the search for missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. The plan to resume the search in the Indian Ocean was disclosed in a statement by Darren Chester, Australia's Minister for Infrastructure and Transport. The Malaysian government is entering into an agreement with Ocean Infinity to search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. It's all very redundant. Let me move on here. So the statement says that Ocean Infinity will look for the lost Boeing 777-200ER in yet unsearched areas where it is believed the aircraft could be. And the government will provide technical assistance for the effort. No time frame for when the search will start was provided. A 2-year-long underwater search funded jointly by the Australian, Malaysian, and Chinese governments for the aircraft formally ended on 17th of January. On 3rd October, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau's final report on MH370 stated that the possibility of finding the aircraft are better now than it has ever been. Although that was their final report. So, not sure.
Then why
The
did they
underwater
stop?
search, exactly. The underwater search has eliminated most of the high probability areas yielded by reconstructing the aircraft's flight plan, and the debris drift studies conducted in the past 12 months have identified the most likely area with increasing precision. Reanalysis of satellite imagery taken on 23rd March 2014 in an area close to the 7th arc has identified a range of objects which may be MH370 debris. This suggests an area of less than 25,000 square kilometers that has the highest likelihood of containing MH370. And just to recap, the 777-200ER was operating a flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing on March 8th, 2014, when it mysteriously turned back over the Gulf of Thailand and made its way to the southern reaches of the Indian Ocean via the Straits of Malacca. There were 239 passengers and crew on board.
All right. So it's never been a better
Yeah.
time to discover
Never
this
been a
airplane.
better time, as we write in our final report. We will not continue the search, but there's never been a better time. No, but
I'm just curious what the fee these guys will get if they find it. It must be worth their while because they say it's a no find, no fee. But if we find it, what are they going to charge?
An arm and a leg.
yeah.
Oh, that's probably not appropriate. Sorry.
I think the sharks would
very
have sorted all
insensitive.
that out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I guess Malaysia is still very interested to have it found. Interested enough to go forward with this.
Spend the money.
So,
yeah. All right. Thank you, Steph. And finally, before we move on to our feedback. Yes?
Oh, sorry. Didn't say anything.
Oh, I thought you were holding your hand up. Like you wanted to say something
no,
else.
I had a random small itch behind my ear.
Oh, okay. I thought you were trying to signal me or something. Okay. This from John and Liz. They both sent links to articles regarding this latest little runway mix-up at San Francisco International. The FAA is investigating a second incident at SFO involving an Air Canada plane and its landing. Would you like to continue with this, Captain Nick?
It's an interesting one. Yeah, I had a quick listen. The guy was presumably given a clearance to land. And then later on during his approach, I'm not quite sure why they decided that the runway was no longer clear. Was it an aircraft that didn't get off in time?
So 2 aircraft cleared onto the same taxiway or holding area, and I guess there wasn't enough room. I think that's kind of what happened. They were kind of stacked right behind each other when they weren't. Is that right, Jeff? Or am I getting that mixed
here
up?
we're going to listen. We're going to listen to the audio right here. I have that, and then we'll break it down. But I think I can describe. You guys are close, but not quite exactly right. Here we go.
Okay, my bad.
Aircan 781, San Francisco Tower, wind 2706, runway 28 right, clear to land.
Land 28 right, Aircan 781.
That's the subject aircraft.
3117, go down to Delta, please. Well, all right. Southwest 3117, use Tango there, hold short to 8 left.
Okay, so I'm pausing it for the moment. There was some time elapsed from the time that Air Canada was cleared to land, and Southwest was the preceding airplane that the tower controller was expecting them to make a certain taxiway, which is normal, but apparently they landed a little bit long. They passed it, and that you could hear him go, okay, then continue down to Tango, which I'm assuming is the next taxiway, and get off the runway. And so now I think he's a little concerned that, the Southwest airplane is on the runway a little bit longer than he's expecting or anticipating. So I'll continue with this.
Tango, hold short 28 left, Southwest 3117.
Sorry, 99384, 28 left. 384, San Francisco Tower, 28 left, clear to land, wind 2706.
28 left, clear land, yeah, 384.
Aircan 781, go around. Aircan 781, go around. Air Canada 781, go around. Air Canada 781, go around.
Oops.
Air Canada 781, go around. New Zealand 7 Heavy, contact NorCal departure.
New Zealand 7 Heavy.
Air Canada 781, go around.
6 times.
Heavy, turn left at Echo, ground point 8.
Southern ground, 12 heavy.
United 2065 without delay, cross to left, center ground, point 8. Without delay, please traffic company 2 mile final, they're fast.
Yeah, we're moving
Southwest 3117, pull all the way up to the whole bars, hold short, 2 8 left.
We'll do it Southwest 3117, hold short 248 left.
Hey, 1736, 2 8 left.
At 1736, San Francisco Tower, wind 2706, runway 28 left for the land.
Runway 2 late, 1736.
Air Canada 781, Tower. Air Canada 781, Tower. Air Canada 781, Tower.
Yeah, I got 71 is pulling with radio here.
That's pretty evident. Air Canada 781, pull all the way up to the southwest, get as close as you can, and hold short of runway 28 left. Air Canada 781.
Yeah, check that. Pull close to southwest here, Air Canada 71.
West 3117, cross to left, ground point 8.
Cross 28 left, ground point 8, Southwest 3117.
Air Canada 781, cross 28 left, center ground point 8.
Alright, ground point 8, cross 28 left, Air Canada 71.
Air Canada 781, taxi Bravo to the ramp.
Bravo to the ramp, Air Canada 781.
Possible pilot deviation, I have a number, let me know when you're ready.
Yikes. You never want to hear that one. Also, possible pilot deviation. Here's a number you want to copy down.
Not good.
No. And so, again, I think that it turns out, I think that the Southwest flight had actually cleared the runway. And so the runway wasn't actually occupied when Air Canada touched down. But we counted them as we were listening to the audio 6 times. The controller directed Air Canada 781 or whatever the call sign was to go around. And because, you know, we always know here. You can always go around if you decide it doesn't look right coming down. But if the air traffic controller tells you to go around, you must comply. And so obviously, I don't think in this case that they were ignoring the direction to go around. I think that, and this is my theory, and see if you don't agree with me, Steph and Captain Nick. Sometimes when we're coming into an airport, we have the tower frequency on one, these communications panels that we have usually have 2 sides. So you have the left side with a frequency in it and the right side with a frequency in it, and you either have a button or a toggle switch. In my airplane is a toggle, where you move the toggle switch and then it's that side of the radio, and then you pop it over this way and it's the left side of the radio. And a lot of times you're on tower, and just to kind of be proactive and you're ready to switch to ground control once you clear the runway, you have the ground control frequency set up on the other side of the comm radio. And I'm not saying I've ever done this, but you can sometimes put in a frequency, and because we're so used to dialing in a new frequency on the other side and then automatically taking our thumb and moving that switch to the next frequency. So
well, I'll tell you what I've done in the past, even if Jeff has never done it. Excuse me.
Yes, I have done it. Of course, everybody understands I'm being sarcastic. I've done this before.
I know, everyone's done it, is my point. And I've done it where I've put in a new frequency that I've been assigned to, and I hit the toggle switch, but I just managed to like hit it twice instead of once, and went, like, I saw it switch, but I didn't see it switch back to the previous one. And then I called up and, stated who I was and what I was doing, and and they're like, no, you're right back where you were. And you're like, oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you give me that other frequency again?
No, you usually say flip the switch. Now for us, it's actually, it's a little bit different, I guess, in your radio head, but ours is actually 2 separate heads. We're in 2, knobs for the frequencies on one side and on the other. And it's actually like a mechanical little switch. I'm not sure the Airbus has.
Ours is actually just like a push button, or on the Cirrus anyway. It's most of them.
Let me describe what the Airbus has. Okay, the radio that you're currently using, you make a selection to change frequencies on that radio. Would be box 1, 2, or 3 on the VHF side, and that means the 2 windows with the frequencies are active for that radio. The left-hand side is the one you're actually transmitting on, and the right-hand side, when you dial the knob, is the one where all the numbers change. So you can pre-arm the right-hand window, and then when you want to change frequency, there's a little button in between the two windows. You press that, and the two frequencies swap over. So the one you previously had armed moves into the active window and vice versa. Now, the common mistake people make is either they don't press it, they press it at an inappropriate time, swap those frequencies, or much more common is to actually, instead of having the VHF1 radio in those windows, they've got the wrong radio selected. They've got, and the only difference is that above those windows there's a little row of buttons, and VHF1 is the left-hand one, VHF2 is the next one along, VHF3 is the next one along. Now, if sometimes you get someone, all right, I'll arm VHF2 to use, or say on ramp or something, and they forget to select VHF2. They put the frequency in, they swap it over, and they take the active frequency on the main box, which you're talking to air traffic on, away from you, which would be VHF1. Now, these guys checked in using their main radio, I suspect VHF1. Now, either someone switched those frequencies over accidentally on VHF1, or someone was messing about with VHF2 and didn't actually select it, forgot that they hadn't actually activated VHF2 and swapped those numbers over. But there is a third possibility which might have nothing to do with the pilots. Now, I suspect this has been modded out some time ago, but we did have a significant problem of frequencies going quiet. And it was turned out to be a software glitch in the audio control panel, I'm pretty sure. And it was possible for your active radio reception to just quietly mute itself out. And you just didn't hear anything on it. And I think the thing to do was to turn it off and turn it back on again, and all of a sudden people would be chatting to you. And the only way to work out what had happened would be going, well, it's awfully quiet. If you haven't heard anyone for a while, what do you think's going on? And you could mess about with it, couldn't speak to anyone, you'd transmit, you wouldn't get a reply. But that was some years ago, and I'm pretty certain all that would have been modded out by now, because it was just a glitch in the software, and they rewrote and fixed that and obviously modified everything. So they're the options. I suspect it was finger trouble from the crew, and they selected away from the frequency. Either that, or they were having a very heated discussion and didn't hear their call sign like 7 times.
At a very inappropriate time.
I was going to say, on final approach.
Yeah.
So, you know, as Captain Nick knows, he's flown there, I've flown there, those parallel approaches are very tightly spaced, and it's always, I mean, it's, the controller is just talking nonstop. And so there's constantly chatter on the radio. There's a lot going on. And if it were the case where they accidentally maybe advanced to the ground frequency, then you'd have a lot of chatter on the radio. Maybe it didn't dawn on them that the chatter that they're hearing now on the radio has nothing to do with the tower controller, but now it's the ground controller or whatever. You know, who knows exactly what happened there. But if it was complete silence, then that should have been the big red flag. Like, why aren't we hearing anything at this very busy airport?
Yeah, very true.
So, and it turns out that according to this article, that as the plane got closer to landing, a tower supervisor used a red light gun to alert the crew to abort the landing. A flashing light gun as the crew is not responding to radio instructions. So, you know, apparently they didn't know to look at the tower to see whether or not there was a light, because they probably didn't know there was a problem.
Yeah. Was it dark?
Yeah. It was dark.
Okay. Well, because I wouldn't know in the dark where the damn tower was. And there are lots of lights on an airfield. I mean, there are lots of lights.
That's true.
And if you got one extra red light, you'd be going, God, that light's got a bright nav light. Or, you know, you wouldn't necessarily go, well, that's the tower. You wouldn't necessarily even know where the tower was. It'd just be a light coming out of the dark. So I really don't know how appropriate that is. Now, someone fires a red fairy flare over the airfield. I would have known what that was. And for a start, it's very easy to see, very, distinct. Someone fires a red fairy, I'd go, sugar. That means I'm not allowed to land. Now, whether you get everyone going around from every runway, that could be
Probably.
a little bit
It'd be very
embarrassing. But
non-specific.
if the alternative is to land on top of someone, better that than the alternative.
Right.
Now, the only other thing I'm going to bring up here, and I don't normally make complaints about American air traffic procedures.
Never.
I've never heard you ever. First time.
Exactly. But perhaps we should discuss the fact that this guy had been cleared to land when there was obviously a lot going on ahead of him and a lot of potential reasons to be called to go around. And so he's had a clearance, and the fact that he didn't hear the calls are beside the point. The fact is that giving a clearance to someone at the distance he was is not a fail-safe call, and that's my sort of thing.
Very point well taken. That's one of the downsides of the way that it's commonly done here in the U.S.
Yeah, and when I say it's not a fail-safe call, what I mean is you then have to rescind it. If the guy doesn't hear you rescinding his clearance, then he's just going to land, because the last thing he heard from you was you're clear to land. Whereas in the UK and most other countries that I fly to, you only get a clearance when the runway is yours and it's guaranteed to you. You are cleared late. Sometimes it can come very late, but when you get it, the runway's yours. Now, of course, they still can rescind that, but it's very unlikely, because you get your landing clearance very late, or can do it quite late compared with what happens in the States. And there's usually nobody ahead of you, and there's no one on the runway, and nothing's going to happen. Now, obviously, if a vehicle suddenly blunders onto the runway, air traffic will scream at you. But that is inherently a much safer system.
I agree. That is true. It's so what's the difference? There's like a fail safe and a fail, but there's two different fail modes. And I think that the way that you guys do it is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the easiest for air traffic, because air traffic get all their clearances out and well in advance, and they're never going to forget to give someone a landing clearance. But it is certainly the same.
But as far as we're concerned, the operators, you're kind of in the mode that I have not received landing clearance. I have not received landing clearance. I'm thinking about the go around procedure and everything else. So the system as we are using it, you almost have a tendency to become complacent because you've received your clearance. It's a done deal. I've been cleared to land. It's possible they could rescind it.
How many times have we talked about that? Where it should always be, instead of thinking, yes, I'm just coming in to land, I should be thinking about, yes, I'm coming in to go around, and if everything's okay, maybe I'll land instead.
Yeah.
So
now here's an indication of just how important it is to get that state of mind correct in your head. We no longer say, when the guy calls minimums, we no longer reply with the word landing, because that used to be our call, because when he calls minimums, you can see the runway and you think it's safe to land, you would call landing. We now just say continue, because up to between like 200 feet in the runway, it's still possible that you could decide that it's no longer safe to land. And we don't want guys to be in the frame of mind that he's committed himself to land. We don't want him to feel that it's still good and a safer decision sometimes to go around. So we've even taken that out of our SOP calls on the flight deck, so that you don't ever put yourself in a mind where you think you're clear to land when you're not. So, that's how seriously we take it.
Yeah. Well, probably a good way to go.
Trouble is that your system has been inculcated for so many years, I can't even see it changing.
I can't see it changing either. Yeah. So,
but we, for the longest time, we were using the term, position and hold, and we changed to line up and wait. So who knows? Perhaps.
How did that happen?
I don't know. It must have been at a bar somewhere in the UK.
We lost our minds temporarily. We don't change anything here, right? We just keep plowing ahead with the same, different. We're going to do it our way. because that's how we've always done it.
My way or the highway.
We don't care what the rest of the world does. America.
All right. Well, that's the news.
Oh, by the way, I found out something interesting the other day.
Yeah.
We were going on about pounds and inches and things the other day, and how you guys stick to those. Do you know what you define an American pound? Yeah, it was a pound, American pound as.
A pound?
The official definition in America of an American pound is. I
don't
know. It was a gallon. Sorry, and it was a US gallon. The official. The same applies to pounds, though. The US gallon is defined as 3.14721 liters. Oh no,
it's a nice round number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but what I mean is that the American system is actually built on a metric system, such that a pound is no longer actually a pound anymore. It's actually a part of a kilogram, or
no, it's been reverse engineered that way.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's reverse engineering. Yeah. I mean, a gallon is 128 ounces.
It's a derivative. It's a derivative. Yeah.
And for that fact, I like the guys from Stuff You Should Know. They're very good.
Again,
they're Canadians, so what would they know?
I don't know. I'm thinking. I'm not sure. I agree with that, but what do I know?
Yeah, you never trust anything you hear on a podcast.
That's right. That's good advice right there. Never trust anything, including this one. Exactly. Oh, by the way, speaking of landing clearances and all that kind of stuff, we're going to have some feedback that's going to be pertinent to that. Very soon, like third up in line for our feedback on today's show. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that. So speaking of feedback, let's do it.
Captain, incoming message.
Okay, let's start with some feedback from Rebecca. If you had a chance to go to Wings Over Pittsburgh, you had a chance to meet Rebecca. And she sent us this. Jeff and APG crew. I'm hoping to go into the recording studio tomorrow to record and submit the piece below as an audio feedback. Okay, she did, actually. There's an update. She sent me some follow-on feedback. She recorded something for us. And so instead of me butchering this all up, let me play the wonderful piece of audio feedback sent in by Becky.
Hey, Captain Jeff and my survey trip to the Flight 93 Memorial in Shanksville last week proved to be more fruitful than expected. But before I share those items, I would like to share a few of the thoughts that I had that day as I envisioned my APG friends coming to the site, perhaps for the very first time. Everything about the site is appropriate, beginning with the long, slow, winding drive before any buildings come into view. You see the flight path. The architectural design and layout of each element on the contemplative campus slows down one's thinking. The exhibits are ordered in a timeline made up of mere minutes, and dignity and honor surrounds every individual involved. There's a gradual descending trail leading to the wall of stone markers, each one engraved with a name. It gives a feel like a slow descent of a normal approach, only their terrible descent was anything but normal that day. A locked gate prevents anyone from intruding on the hallowed coerced resting place, set aside for immediate family members only. There are places to sit and quietly think, and places designated to leave items of tribute, a guest book where you can leave your thoughts, but most of all, there is silence. Not enforced silence, but spontaneous. Visitors are not there out of macabre curiosity, but to pay their respects. People lean in and whisper to one another, barely audible, as their minds try to grasp the chain of events, or they gaze in disbelief at the few relatively intact items recovered from the smoldering pit and debris field. So little was left unpulverized by the impact. Fragments of fuselage recovered were so small, it was as if they had been put through a wood chipper. Yet, nearly intact was a parking stub or the front cover of a flight attendant manual, the owners of which had no idea what lay ahead. You wonder how any of this was recovered, but each item gave a clue or closure. You seek closure too. There is silence in the fields, as you stand at several observation points or make your way to the individual markers. Because the empty field was an abandoned strip mine, raised, still bare of trees, only thinly covered with grasses, there's a constant wind which makes a rushing white noise past your ears, not unlike the white noise experienced in flight. The silence is necessary. It creates a weight that you both want to avoid. It's hard to put into words, except that the heroes do have voices, and their voices will be heard in the silence. And as you stand and try to fathom yourself in their place on that terrible day and wonder what you would have done, you hear their voices. The 40-foot wind chime, appropriately named the Tower of Voices, will be installed at a distance from the other features and behind you as you walk the solemn glide path towards the visitor center, then further down the path towards the coerced final resting place of the 33 brave passengers and the 7 crew members. I believe the silence I've described will remain intact, even though the constant wind will create a steady cacophony of tones, perhaps like the cacophony of voices the family members heard when they listened to the black box recordings and the phone messages of their loved ones, struggling to attempt to regain control of the aircraft. Some of the chimes may be sweet and melodic, like reminders of blue skies and once bright futures, and some of the tones will be low, conveying gravity and depth, reminders to those left behind to be brave and live fully. Even without chimes, those voices would persist. The added sounds will be appropriate, just like everything else at the park. When and if an APG meetup at Flight 93 Memorial Site is announced, or if you live near enough to make the trip on your own, you might think, who wants to relive all the churning we felt inside on that awful day? And on one hand, you're right. But you might also reasonably expect to come away from your visit with more clarity and chutzpah to face your own challenges. Now, here are some of the things which I did not expect to find on my trip last week. I did not expect that on my way back to the Turnpike westbound, I've only ever headed back east from where I came, I drove right past an airport in Stoystown. Stoystown is right next to Shanksville. I've been to Stoystown dozens of times to help decorate the graves of my husband's great-great-grandparents who owned a nearby farm in the 1800s. I was quite surprised to stumble upon Quemahenning 2PN4, a private airport. While I was having a hard time believing my eyes, I think there was a large sign that said, "Fly In Breakfast Club." So those of you with GA pilot's license will have to research that one and get back to me. I have a call in to the owner, so I can find out if some of you may fly in weather permitting. And also to just get in touch with any local AvGeeks who might like to join us. Or is it AvGeeks? I always say AvGeeks. The second unexpected discovery came as a result of my visit to the bookstore. While just being my usual nerdy self, I chose to purchase a book written by the widow of First Officer Leroy Homer. It was not until I was in the waiting room at my appointment in Pittsburgh that I discovered something on the back cover of the book which will be of great interest to all of you, especially those who send feedback asking about ways to manage the expenses of flight training. Melody Homer has set up a scholarship fund for young people interested in becoming a commercial pilot. It has been granted annually for the last 14 years. You can read about it, and you can read about each stellar recipient, some of whom may be in a cockpit near you. Opening day to submit applications to be considered for the next scholarship begins on October 31st. So young APGers, be sure to check it out. And hurry, because by the time this episode airs, there may be only a few days or hours left to take action. Those of you who love spending your extra pocket money on promoting your passion of aviation, you can give to this foundation as well. I'm sure your contributions will be appreciated at any time. Here's a link, which can be included in the show notes, www.leroywhomer.jr. That's just jr.org. If you are interested in planning an APG meetup next fall at Flight 93 Memorial, be sure to contact me on Twitter or Slack, where I am at Rebecca Selah, not my real name. Till then, clear skies and unlimited visibility. Or was that clean undies? After wings over Pittsburgh, I can't remember. Your Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area APG friend, Rebecca.
Thanks, Rebecca. That was awesome. Love that eerie sounding music.
The music was very appropriate, I think, for
great audio
the
feedback. Yeah,
now, Rebecca's with us right now in the chat room live, and she said she was wrong about that airport. Need to use Somerset County 2G2. Sorry. She said it would have changed a few things, but was in a hurry to get it in this week. She said that the one that she had mentioned in the audio recording that we just played, I'm not even sure how to pronounce that. Kamening is a grass strip. Well, hey, some of the APGers out there probably fly airplanes. They can land on the grass strip as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it just might not be the correct place. The destination was incorrect.
Yeah. So. Right. Anyway, a very nice job, Rebecca. And so, yeah, keep us advised as to the planning for a potential meetup at the Flight 93 Memorial. It sounds very, very interesting. And thanks for that information about the upcoming scholarship, which I believe she said the deadline is the 31st of this month, just a couple days from now.
Yeah, it's pretty time sensitive. And was there a link along with that for the?
Yeah, she sent a link, and we'll put that in the show notes.
And I would say that place was pronounced Quemahenning.
Yeah, well, I see the phonetic hint that somebody gave there.
Oh, really? No, I was just using my innate intelligence. Is there something in the chat room?
Yeah, we believe you. All right. Well, thank you.
So the scholarship opens on the 31st, but it will fill fast, she says. So still
so you want
time
to
sensitive.
You want to be ready for it right now. Get your resumes. Yeah. Send it in. Okay. Some of the initial feedback on today's show is kind of follow up on some of the things that we've talked about on recent shows. And this gentleman here has his own podcast, the Ready for Takeoff podcast. And, well, I'll let him tell you what he wants to talk about.
Hi, APG crew. This is George Nolly from Ready for Takeoff podcast. You were talking about the Iridium telephone system, and I thought that's really interesting because this week's major episode on the Ready for Takeoff podcast is an interview with Dr. Ray Leopold, the creator of the Iridium telephone system. It's episode 127, and it's a really fascinating interview. Ray was at United States Air Force undergraduate pilot training when he got injured and removed from pilot training. And he ended up getting his doctorate in electrical engineering, went on for a full career in the Air Force, and then got hired by Motorola and somehow conceived the idea of a constellation of 77 satellites in low Earth orbit that would be used for satellite communications, where you could use telephones to communicate via satellite. The system was later changed to 66 satellites, and I don't want to ruin it for you, but he goes into some detail into how the system got the name Iridium. It's really cool. Anyway, I thought you'd be interested in hearing about that. And by the way, Ray mentions regarding GPS accuracy that during the Gulf War, the military intentionally degraded the accuracy of the GPS system because they were afraid that the enemy might try to use some GPS-guided weapons against our troops. So there is the potential for GPS to lose accuracy, although I don't think you would get 25-mile errors like what you were talking about in the podcast. Anyway, just wanted to let you know about episode 127 in the Ready for Takeoff podcast. This is George Nolly signing out.
Thank you, George. And guess what? We'll have that link in the show notes to his episode 127 on the Ready for Takeoff podcast.com. So please check it out. Thanks, as always, George.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that worried us about the accuracy was not that they fed in an error. We knew that the military could degrade it and give you a less than accurate signal. But the ship's accuracy detection system indicated that it was working perfectly. but it was 25 miles away. Now, if you degrade the signal, then you actually get an indication that it's not as accurate as it should be, and your accuracy circle has enlarged. But what they were getting was, no, your system's absolutely fine, but you're 25 miles from where you should be. So you go, oh, that's really dangerous.
And that's why you have to have some other backup system to kind of cross-check to make sure that you're something close to where you think you are.
Yeah, exactly right.
All right. Awesome. Tyler, speaking of landing clearances, Airline at SFO, he says, thanks for providing. You know what? Why don't one of you read this, because for some reason my mouth is not working anymore.
I'm going to give it to Nick, and you'll know why in a minute. So,
okay, thanks for providing an excellent podcast to listen to during long commutes and weekly yard chores. I'm currently an FO on the 737 variety in the DC area on Acme SAM. I especially enjoy the weekly news and the lively discussions that typically follow. There's definitely a lot of knowledge amongst the crew. Oh, Steph just wants to eat. That's why she gave it to me. Someone recently asked about landing.
Sorry, it's true.
And I recently discovered this. It might clear up some questions, and it has good references as well. Answers to pop quiz, all about landing clearance. Question 1. You are following another aircraft on downwind in an airport traffic pattern. Your aircraft and the other aircraft are the only two aircraft in the pattern, and there's no one waiting for takeoff. The aircraft ahead of you has been cleared to land. When may the tower issue a landing clearance to you?
So we should probably note that this is U.S. specific. Yes.
Yeah. Answer.
What's the answer?
Tower may issue a landing clearance as soon as the controller can determine there will be sufficient separation between your aircraft and the aircraft landing ahead of you. So that could happen like beginning of downwind, I guess. Or
as soon as you take off from your destination.
Yeah.
That would be a little excessive.
You're an hour behind, so there's no way you're going to catch up. I'll give you a landing clearance now.
Cleared plan.
Exactly. So the reference is JO 7110-653-10-6. I don't think that's very exciting.
It just rolls off the tongue.
Exactly right. A landing clearance to succeeding aircraft in the landing sequence need not be withheld if you observe the positions of the aircraft and determine that prescribed runway separation will exist when the aircraft crosses the landing threshold. So that requires a lot of judgment on part of the air traffic controller. So question 2, using the same scenario as question 1, what is the latest point in your approach to landing that tower may issue a landing clearance to you? Answer? Anyone going to guess? No. There is no defined latest point in the regulations. Your tires must not touch the runway pavement until you receive landing clearance. With that in mind, tower may clear you to land at any point prior to touchdown. It is more likely tower will clear you to land 50 miles away. I'm sorry, tower will clear you to either clear you to land or tell you to go around prior to you crossing the runway threshold.
Sorry, I was going to make a guess, but I just didn't have time to unclick my
your mouth
mute
was
button
full.
while I was eating my dinner. Sorry.
Question 3. It is daytime and the weather is clear. An aircraft ahead of you has just landed as you approach the runway. Must the tower ensure the preceding aircraft will be clear of the runway by the time you land before issuing a landing clearance to you? No.
And surprisingly, the answer is...
Yes, no. I mean, I can't believe that.
No.
So what they say is separate arriving...
Separate
an arriving aircraft. Separate an arriving aircraft from another aircraft using the same runway by ensuring that the arriving aircraft does not cross the landing threshold until one of the following conditions exists, or unless authorized in para 31010, altitude restricted low approach. The other aircraft has landed and is clear of the runway. between sunrise and sunset if you can determine the distances by reference to suitable landmarks and other aircraft has landed. It need not be clear of the runway if the following minimum distances from the landing threshold exist. This gets a bit complicated here. So why don't we just suggest people look up JO 711-653-10-3, same runway separation, because we're getting into like 3,000, 4,000 category 1 or 2, which is perhaps a little bit technical. Jeff's note. Oh, there's a Jeff's note here. I'll leave you for that, Jeff.
So he says, in most cases, tower will only issue landing clearance if the controller is certain the runway will be clear by the time you cross the landing threshold. The only situation I've ever seen a tower let one aircraft land with another aircraft on the runway is at a busy fly-in, such as the EAA convention at Oshkosh. At military air bases and at civilian military joint use airports, tower will let one military aircraft land while another military aircraft is still on the runway. I was going to say that as well. Also note that ICAO rules for the situation are the same rules applied by the FAA. However, in many countries outside of the U.S., controllers will only issue landing clearance when the preceding aircraft has actually cleared the runway. And then, Captain Nick has made a point of that in today's show and earlier episodes as well. In those countries, anticipated separation is not used. So I guess it could be, but it's not used.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Now, do you want to do all these? There's quite a few.
There are. You know what? We'll have a link to his feedback in the show notes, so you can read all these subsequent questions and references to the Joint Order 7110.65.
It would be very good homework for U.S. pilots who are considering. I'm not absolutely certain about this stuff. Perhaps I'll look it up.
Okay. Very good.
Absolutely.
How was the dinner so far, Steph?
Oh, so far it's excellent. Very good.
I'm envious. All right.
Chicken and corn and.
This is a good one. I'm going to read this to Nick.
Well, hey, is it a bedtime story, Jeff?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Good. Lovely.
So get,
sit back and enjoy and get all comfy, put your PJs on, brush your teeth.
Don't sleep yet, though. You have to listen to this.
Oh, okay.
I really enjoyed the Plain Tales interviews with Ian Black. As I've mentioned before, my 3 years flying as just a navigator. Oh, this is from Jim Howard, just a navigator, tongue in cheek. As I've mentioned before, my 3 years flying as just a navigator, EWO, Electronics Weapons Officer, I believe.
Yeah.
EWO, I'm sorry. EWO.
Yep.
At RAF Upper Hayford, flying the EF-111A was a highlight of 20 years in the U.S. Air Force. So Cold War RAF stories are always interesting to me. My crewed pilot, and that not C-R-U-D-E, but C-R-E-W-E-D.
I thought the first one was much better.
Yeah. But, you don't understand the context and you just hear crewed, and that's what I would assume that I was saying, or he was saying. My crewed pilot, Z-Bob, cheated on me and flew with another EWO one day and came back with an interesting story. Oh, wow. He told me that they had been flying around, minding their own business, when they were intercepted by an RAF Lightning. This in itself was not unusual, but in this case, the Lightning pilot asked over the radio if he could take their picture. That was fine with Z-Bob. Z-Bob told me the Lightning pilot seemed to have trouble staying in formation while messing with his camera, so Z-Bob asked if the Lightning wanted to take the lead long enough for the picture to be taken, which they did. I wonder if Ian happened to take a photo of an EF-111A Raven in the 1987-ish time frame. Jim Howard.
Well, yeah. I contacted Ian. Funny old thing.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. And he replied by telling me, let me see. Interesting. I never shot an EF, Trouble One, air-to-air. A few F-111Fs. I think this must have been Chris Allen. I'll look in his books, as I'm not sure there's a shot of an EF-111. And then he sent me some pictures, and I've got a front cover here of a book by Chris Allen, who was another Lightning pilot who did air-to-air photography, called Fast Jets 2. And in the interior of Fastjets 2, there is indeed a picture of an EF-111, and the caption reads, Raven Beam 13 en route to its roost at Upper Hayford. The only other U.S. Air Force unit operating the EF-111A is the 390th ECS 366th TFW, I think that's Tactical Fighter Wing, based at Mountain Home Air Force Base, Idaho. So it looks like Chris Allen actually did some work, although the picture I'm looking at, which Ian has rather awkwardly sent to me upside down. So you know what happens when you get your iPad and you try and turn it upside down? The picture turns upside down again. And the picture he's got is actually in sort of echelon right. So it looks like this picture is of the lightning information on the EF-111, not the other way around. So whether that's one of his earlier pictures that he was struggling with, came out okay. But that's the one that's in Chris Allen's book. So it might have been Chris Allen is the answer.
No, okay. Very
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
Now, people in the chat room are making fun of my lighting here, apparently.
Well, you're
it's
wearing a
time to
nice
look-
dark sweater, and the room
Yeah.
has gotten very dark, but the light
So you
is
just see my face.
illuminating
Yeah.
your face very nicely.
You're just looking like a hologram, actually.
Well, I tried to turn on some lights. There's a lamp right over here, and it's plugged in, and I'm turning the switch on and off, and even the switch on the wall plate on the, on the near the door. But
We thought maybe you
that
stole
lamp is
one
not
of
coming
the
on.
oil lamps from the Mad Dog, and we're using that to light
I
the...
could-
It looks very Halloweeny.
That's
actually.
funny.
Yes.
Sorry.
All right, we'll deal with it. Okay.
All right, we will. Good thing this is an audio podcast.
That's right. Who cares? Let's see. It would be nice light around though, but I don't know what to do. There's no other lights to turn on in
That's
this
fine.
room. Did I mention?
We
I don't think
hear
I
you
mentioned on the
just
show.
fine.
Yeah, that this is like a huge room. It must be 1,500 square feet of space here. 2 living rooms with big screen TVs, a bedroom with 2 queen-size beds and another big screen TV, a huge bathroom. It's amazing.
It's bigger than some places
amazing.
I've lived in my life, like
I
apartments
know.
and even small houses. So
I agree. I think it
Sounds
was
nice, Jeff.
bigger than my wife and my first apartment, I think.
So they spent all the money on the room and none on the lighting. That's a shame.
Yeah, well, I didn't think it was going to get this dark.
it's mood lighting
Yeah.
for
Well,
your...
has the sun gone down? Does
Yeah,
tend
the sun is down. The ceiling is, I think, like 14 or 15 feet tall. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Let's continue.
Is this a bit of old news, this Virgin aircraft?
I don't
'Cause
know.
that was some time ago.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So is it even worth talking about then?
Let's see what the
it was
the
kind of
article
well
says.
covered.
Tuesday, September 19th. So like a month ago.
Oh,
Up to you.
sounds
You can
recent
do
to
it.
me. Okay.
Francis.
It might be interesting because of how airlines have to, weigh costs of doing certain things and weigh
Cool.
inconvenience and that kind of thing.
It's
So
this isn't news. This is just feedback. So
yeah,
we'll just
well,
take it.
Francis was wondering about this anyway, and it was a. We'll just. I'll tell you what. We can keep it
Anonymous?
Airline anonymous. Yeah.
No, I don't think that's necessary. I don't work for them, so that's fine.
That's true.
Oh, that's true.
I
well,
work
we can
for
talk
Acme
about
Red.
Virgin Atlantic then. Okay.
Yeah.
Not every passenger on Virgin Atlantic's daily late afternoon flight from Heathrow to Boston has enjoyed a smooth journey recently. Last Thursday, back in September, flight VS-11 diverted to Bangor, Maine, hundreds of miles short of its final destination because of bad weather at Boston. And on Friday, 226 passengers were delayed by more than 90 minutes because their Boeing 787 was used as a taxi to take a pilot to Manchester. As passengers checked in, they were handed a letter which began, "Your flight to Boston will be operating via Manchester today. In order for us to ensure our customers are able to fly from Manchester to New York today, we need to fly one of our pilots to Manchester. We have looked at other options to achieve this, but this is the only option available to use. The wide-bodied plane took off as normal from Heathrow, but spent barely half an hour in the air before touching down at Manchester. Passengers, did you notice I tried to say Manchester?
You did very good job.
But it doesn't sound right to me.
Manchester's the way to say
Passenger. All right, Manchester. Passengers had been told, you will remain on board the aircraft during our short stop in Manchester Airport. The plane spent around 90 minutes there because the original flight could not carry sufficient fuel for the transatlantic journey, and so the tanks needed to be filled before the plane could continue. Eventually, the plane left Manchester more than 2 hours late, but made up some time and arrived in Boston 96 minutes behind schedule. Passengers waiting in Boston for the Boeing in order to return to Heathrow were also delayed by around 2 hours. A spokesperson for Virgin Atlantic said, unfortunately, one of our pilots in Manchester fell unwell, and therefore, rather than cancel a flight, we took the decision to take a pilot from our London Heathrow base to operate the aircraft. The pilot was needed for flight VS-127, which eventually departed around the same time as the diverted Boston flight. Given the enormous cost of using a Boeing 787 to ferry a member of flight crew, it seems an extreme decision. Besides the cost of several thousands of pounds of extra fuel, Virgin Atlantic would have to pay extra air traffic control and airport handling charges. Also significant is the cost of an additional takeoff and landing in terms of wear and tear on the airframe and engines. The total bill is likely to be in excess of £10,000, as well as the additional environmental impact of an extra cycle of a large aircraft. The pilot originally intended to fly the Manchester-New York flight had fallen ill almost 4 hours before the Heathrow plane took off. No other pilots for that aircraft type, an Airbus A330, were available in Manchester. On Friday, a line-side fire closed the West Coast main line between London and Manchester, meaning that a Virgin train was not a possibility. The sudden closure also meant that the only domestic flights between Heathrow and Manchester operated by British Airways immediately filled up the rest of the day, or for the rest of the day. An ordinary taxi from Virgin Atlantic's base at Heathrow Terminal 3 to Manchester Airport should take 3 hours and 8 minutes, according to AA Route Planner, though Friday afternoon congestion would have added to the time taken. While a helicopter or fixed-wing air taxi would have been much more expensive, it would have been cheaper than diverting a Boeing 787, which delayed the passengers by more than 360 person-hours in total. The Virgin Atlantic spokesperson said, we never want to disappoint our customers nor make unnecessary diversions, and this is the only option available aside from canceling flight VS-127. So
what they don't mention in this article, though, is what the cost is of a canceled flight. Flights to...
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which I suspect would be much, much, much more, and then you have to do all those rebookings, and, you know, yes, you've delayed some people by an hour and a half, 2 hours, but you would have delayed just as many people by much more than that had they not done this. So
yeah, 226 passengers in a hotel.
Yeah. Wow, a lot of money.
That's going to be expensive.
Yeah. A lot of money.
Yep. And quite honestly, the estimations I think here of what they guess it would have cost are pretty much guesswork. Several thousand pounds of extra fuel. No, very little extra fuel. You know, however much it takes to get airborne out of Manchester. The distance the aircraft flew would have been very similar. It's just the extra fuel to actually do the takeoff, which is only a couple of tons probably. Air traffic control and handling charges aren't huge. Wear and tear insignificant.
Yeah.
Environmental impact. That was my favorite. That was my favorite part. I mean, we've got to make sure we're going green.
One extra. Yeah, that's right. So
we're going green. We're going green. We're gonna take care of the earth. We're going green.
Yeah. So I mean, it's got engines at takeoff power for like 5 minutes and then climbing out. That would have been a tiny bit more. Quite honestly, it's something about nothing. I think just the unusual nature of the event, just taking a pilot and dropping him off in order to prevent the cancellation of flight is what has caused the furor. And I actually think thinking outside the box is the guys that obviously looked at all the other options and gone, actually, this is the easiest thing to do. Let's do that. And they wouldn't have done it without someone very senior giving them the go-ahead. So that's probably the only way they could do it.
I think that the person that wrote this was probably on that flight and was pissed off that they had to go to Manchester first. I guarantee that's what this is.
Supposed to go to Boston or wherever they were going. I had to go to Manchester.
Yeah.
Life is hard.
It is.
Life is hard when you're flying across the pond. So.
Yeah.
Oh well. Well, thanks, Francis. Hope that kind of straightens some stuff out. I think Captain Nick is right. There a lot of exaggeration there. Said, hello, I've recently started listening to your podcast. I love it. Thank you. You're welcome. I'm on the course to get my PPL and have some questions for the real pilots. Well, we're all real pilots here. What are the rules as far as phones in the cockpit?
I'm not a real pilot anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, I can answer it. Coming in to get my PPL, I was very surprised when instructors text/fly and did not mind when we do. Also, what's your favorite airport to fly into? Well, that's something entirely different. So we're going to with the cockpit thing. We've already talked about favorite airports and not favorite airports and that kind of thing on previous shows. You need to catch the syndrome, Zach, and then you'll hear us answer all those questions. So, Steph, it's not unusual, nor is it illegal for you to use your telephone when you're flying around on your general aviation airplane, right?
No. And actually, I was trying to find the specific FAA guidance on that, and I've just not been quick enough here while we were reading through his relatively short feedback, but I'm going to look for it here in a second. But you cannot use it on any IFR flights. That is a no-no. Certainly, kind of general judgment states that if you really shouldn't be using your phone while you're in the car and driving and texting and being distracted, it's not a great idea to be using it in the aircraft either. That being said, you can set up your headset to connect to your phone, Bluetooth, and it will pulse. You can send and receive text messages if you're within, cell service, if you have cell service where you're flying. So usually if you're at lower altitudes. But then again, that may not be a great time to be sending and receiving text messages because that may mean you're in a terminal environment near an airport preparing for landing and or takeoff, or in a situation where your situational awareness should be increased or heightened. So, but let me see if I can find
I've learned something new there, Steph. I didn't realize that even in the GA world, like the part, what would that be, Part 91 operations?
Yeah.
That if you're on an IFR flight plan, that you're not allowed to use your telephone device. I didn't realize that.
But surely
that would make sense.
Using it.
Pardon?
If you're in an airplane, don't you navigate using your phone?
Yes, you're for flight, yes, but not the same as using like Wi-Fi or yeah,
texting. And
let me find it's
talking.
texting and cell phone use, but
yeah.
I'm gonna find the exact guidance on it because it's definitely widely utilized to use your for flight and everything else, especially for IFR flights. But I want to find that. Zach, I'm going to get back to you in just a second.
Yeah.
Because there is specific guidance on that, and I'm not.
Okay. I'll tell you what. Why don't we do this? This is about the time in the show that we normally play Plane Tales. And I think it might be good to do it right now. What do you think?
Sure.
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right. This is the part 2 of the interview of Nige Demery. Is that the way you pronounce his last name?
Yep.
All right. Here we go.
The Old Pilot's Plane Tales. The 49ers Part 2. We continue our interview with Captain Nigel Demery, past president of the Hong Kong Aircrew Officers Association. After years of forced contract changes, poor rostering practices, and intimidation, the pilots of Cathay Pacific have finally voted overwhelmingly for limited industrial action.
So what did the company do to try and offset the likelihood that you were going to finally go on strike?
They were prepared. Good Boy Scouts, be prepared. I became president in the September 2000, and I had some pretty good negotiators. Previous team, actually, I inherited them, and I think we got 117 goals to nil in the Labour Department just before Christmas. We got everything that we wanted on rostering to sort it out. It was an interim deal for, I can't remember, 6 months, 4 months, something like that. And we got everything. And management, yeah, they're reasonably smart. They knew that there was trouble brewing and it wasn't going to get any better. And so they started preparing in the January after Christmas. They started preparing for what would come at the next busy season, which was the summer, and they started getting ready how they were going to do it, and they was going to take us on. Simple as that.
So you think they were out to bust you?
I didn't think that they were, initially I didn't think they were out to bust us, but it definitely turned into that. I looked at it as a matter of control. We're the management, this is our airline, you're the employees, you're the coolies, you're going to do what we tell you, and you're not doing what we're telling you, so we're going to give you a whooping and, thwack you over the head with a cane stick, and until you get back into line. But actually it turned into, as you say, a union bust later on. And basically they knew that if they provoked us enough, we would go on strike. And so they prepared for a strike by the pilots in the summer.
Tell me about the 49ers. Who were they and what happened to them?
They were termed the 49ers because 49 pilots got fired on one day on the 9th of July, 2001. And, I guess 49ers is a bit of a parallel with, I think some Americans play football of some sort, So it was just rolled off the tongue, the 49ers, and it stuck. Actually, 51 pilots were fired in total, but it was just 49 on one day, and so they're called the 49ers. So management prepared for a dust-up. We had last-minute negotiations throughout the whole of June trying to rectify this, but management would not give us the key stuff, which was the rostering data, so we could say, look, this is how many hours a pilot works in a month. And so there was this difference of opinion. They had the data. I mean, we gave them the best data we could, but they wouldn't give us the precise data. And we were in the Labour Department again, who were acting as mediators, conciliators, whichever, certainly not arbitrators. And the talks just broke down, and hey presto, we deemed the 1st of July as our deadline. We got to get it sorted, or we're going to take limited industrial action. As it happened, the 1st of July it was the anniversary of when China took control of Hong Kong again from the Brits. So it was a national holiday, and we thought, actually, 1st of July is not politically correct day to start your industrial action. So we delayed it a couple of days. And as it happened, a typhoon, hurricane, whirlwind, whatever you want to call it, rolled through Hong Kong, Typhoon Yutor. And so Typhoon Yutor actually disrupted the whole operation anyway on the 3rd of July. Management were pretty clever. They then blamed all the disruptions on us. And so they said, right, we're firing 49. We're firing, they didn't say the number actually, that was a different issue, but we're firing a load of pilots in an effort to resolve the pilot dispute. And they assumed we would go on strike. That's what they were planning on. We weren't ready for strike action. To go on strike, you've got to have 3 months money for all of your pilots bankrolled, because nobody's going to get paid for the foreseeable future. You've got to have all the resources backed up. We weren't ready for that. We hadn't had a strike vote. We'd had a limited industrial action vote. So we were taking, it was enhanced contract compliance, really, a go slow, if you like. but still within the contract. So strike is actually breaking the contract, saying I'm not going to work, and so management, they can't fire you under the law, but if they don't have to pay you either. If you don't go to work, you don't get paid. So to do a strike, you have to do what Scargill and the Fleet Street guys worked, and you have to be prepared to support the families for the foreseeable future, and a year, and we weren't ready for that, and they knew it. So they had 23 aircraft on standby, wet leased aircraft, flown by foreign crews, aeroplanes and crews ready to shift all of our passengers. So they were ready, and they were out to bust us. So they fired the 49 guys, expected us to go on strike, but we didn't do that.
Interesting. How were those pilots picked?
Yeah, they were a complete cross-section of the pilot community. There were 23 captains, 28 FOs. Yeah, that adds up to 51. But they were targeting the union guys like myself. I was the president, so I was too high profile. In fact, it's reported that the DFO said, okay, we're going to go for the chief negotiator, John Warham, or are we going to go for the president, Nigel Demery? We can't take them both out. And they went for John Warham rather than me. So I didn't get fired again for a change. But they took out 4 of the 7 negotiating team. They took out 5 of the 20 general committee. So if you look at the proportions, they were targeting the union committee and workers. They'd started, as I say, back 6 months beforehand, getting a list of people together. They interviewed the crew controllers, who were the people that rang pilots up on their days off and said, can you come to work? And so the crew controllers were the interface, and they would say, Fred's difficult to deal with, Bill's difficult to deal with, whatever. They looked at people who'd been taking sick leave. They'd instituted a sick leave program, absence management program, sickness management program, whatever you wish to call it. Pilots, by law, aren't allowed to go to work if they can't clear their ears. They might have a simple head cold. You are not allowed to fly an aeroplane by law if you are not fit. It's like you're not allowed to drive a car if you had too many beers, or any beers. So some guys had, reported sick. They went on the list, and they got a list of about 180. And then I think it was 5th of July, after we'd started the industrial action, they just put 20 managers into a room. They had 180 personnel files there, and they just went down the list of 180. And they, if somebody, they'd say, it doesn't matter, Nigel Demery. He's crew control would say, I've had problems with him there. A manager would say, yeah, find him a bit bolshy. Okay, on the list. Fired, sort of thing. If somebody said, actually, I found him quite helpful in such and such an area, somebody spoke up, if one of the managers spoke up, and then the guy, but they graded the guys and basically took the top 50. A good round number, isn't it? Like the Romans used to do with, it was a decimation.
That's right. Yeah.
Just take 50 and then the rest will go on strike. It's a lesson. So that's how they picked them, really.
I mean, that effectively was illegal. There was no true justification under law for firing these guys, were there?
Well, very clever. The letter of termination basically said, we've lost confidence in you, and in accordance with your contract, you're getting 3 months salary in lieu of notice. No reason given. Where they went wrong was the 2 managers, Tony Tyler and Philip Chen, went and did a press conference. And they basically said, these guys can't be trusted, they're disruptive and what have you. And that's, this is a way to resolve the pilots' dispute. And they put their press notice on their website, and it stayed there for, I think it was 8 years, somewhere in the depths of it. And hey presto, when we were in court, the management saying, no, we just lost confidence in them and fired them in accordance with the contract. And we said, no, it's for a reason. Look, it's on your website today saying that these guys were disruptive and what have you. Therefore, if there was a reason, contractually, you should have given them a discipline and grievance procedure, i.e. a hearing where they should be able to defend themselves in principles of natural justice. Not one guy went through that procedure. Discipline and grievance procedure.
So management were trying to twist your arm to force you to go on strike when you weren't really prepared for it. Did that work?
No, I had a committee of 20 guys and they were clever blokes, far too smart for that. No, we didn't do that. We weren't going to. You have to fight the battles you can win, not the ones that you're definitely going to lose. So no, we just carried on doing what we were doing, but we chose to support the 49ers. And the union came together pretty well initially. I mean, I think I've told you before, but on that first night, on the 9th of July, we went over to a meeting in a place called Discovery Bay on Lantau Island. And there must have been 300 pilots and their wives, because the majority lived out there. And the room was steaming with emotion and anger and all the other stuff. And a lot of the guys that had been sacked were standing in the room as well. And if I, as the president, I could have just said, right, I'm convening an emergency meeting now, let's have a strike vote. I'd have got a strike vote just like that. But that was very dull. So no, it didn't work, Nick.
So what were you able to do for these poor guys, these 49ers who had been sacked?
Yeah, well, we said, before the limited industrial action vote, we'd said that there are going to be victims and we will support you. You will get supported. And, I did a back of the fag packet type maths in a meeting. I said, look, if they fire this, and this is how much you're going to have to pay. So we were psychologically prepared for victims, and we now had 50 victims, 51. And so we'd already decided we'll give them the big four, which is housing, food, schooling, and medical. So these guys needed that to continue to live their lives. Not all of them were in Hong Kong. We had guys in Canada, quite a lot of guys in Canada, considering the number of Canadian pilots percentage-wise. A lot of guys in Canada, just a couple in States and in Australia, I think. And a similar sort of number in the UK. So not everyone needed housing or schooling because it's provided in their home countries, perhaps. But they needed money, and basically the union contribution at the time was 1% normal dues, and we upped that to 5%, an extra 4%. So people were now paying 1/20th of their salary into the union to give us the cash, and that meant that we could give people about 50% of their previous wage to live on. And it was all, I now had a pool of 50 guys because our committee of 20 couldn't run this, but I actually had 50 guys who now had on their hands. The 49ers self-administered, they set up their own subcommittee, they ran the finances, they did everything themselves.
How did the rest of the Cathay pilot workforce react to this? It was obviously quite a burden for some of them to have to commit that amount of money.
Yeah, but they were angry, Nick. They were angry, and so a lot of people were just more than happy to pay the money. Their best buddies had been sacked. Their wives at home, would say, Jill hasn't got any food to feed the kids tonight. So the union responded really well, by and large. Nonetheless, it wasn't all hunky-dory. A lot of people had gone to Hong Kong for money, and surprisingly, it's foreign to me, but they were surprisingly tight. 400 guys left the union out of 1,350 over the next couple of years, and we called them the quitters, and nobody likes a quitter. But the good thing was a lot more people joined the union. All the young lads that had just arrived, that was a big impetus for them to join the union, because they, cracky, is this what really goes on? I better get involved. And so actually, to be honest, I'm proud of how the union as a whole reacted, because it went on for years.
What was the response of the other pilot groups worldwide and the International Federation of Airline Pilot Associations?
We had a support prior to this. It started in 95, 96, when John Warren was president. He'd got more focused on operating internationally. He had a wider perspective of the whole thing. So he'd got a lot of, before this even started, we got a lot of help from IFALPA, the industrial committee there and what have you. They'd started a thing called the One World Cockpit Crew Coalition because the airline forming their alliances like SkyTeam, Star Alliance, One World. Cathay was part of One World. So the pilot groups within One World had got together and they were well organized. So we were prepared. The US guys, they taught us all about FANS, Family Awareness Network System. In other words, if you're going to have an industrial action, you got to get the families on board. Otherwise, the wife, the last thing she says to her husband before he goes out to work is, "Don't get fired today. You know, I need food on the table." So you've got to get the families involved. So we had a very embryo but active family awareness network system. So we'd had a lot of support previously, and afterwards it was very good. You know, all of these people gave us so much advice. The Germans were great, Vereinigung and Cockpit, because they were well organized, as you expect Germans to be. And American Airlines, APA, they gave us a lot of help as well, even though they're not, I don't know where they are now, but they weren't in IFALPA then, but they were well, they gave us access to their communications facilities, and we were doing video broadcasts and stuff, which was in 2000 was actually quite advanced at the time. So we got a lot of help.
We'll leave the interview there and resume the final part of the story, a mixture of sadness and victory, next week. Music by bensounds.com.
Fascinating stuff. I can't wait for the last part.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jeff. I almost decided not to do this because this is an aspect of our jobs which we don't really cover in APG, even though it's actually surprisingly common. It's a part of our job that we almost don't like to admit to because we're well-trained professionals. We have fairly highly paid jobs, and there is a very strong element amongst the general public who don't acknowledge that and think we get a lot of money for doing very little. So when you end up in industrial action, there is often, it's very hard to swing public opinion on the side of the airline pilot, because an awful lot of people will say, well, you're just overpaid bus drivers. Why the hell are you going on strike? And this kind of puts the other side of the story to a certain extent. We're obviously hearing things from Nigel's point of view, and he ran the union. So that's the only side we're going to get. But having been there and actually witnessed a lot of this, I know this to be a very true part of the story. So I just find it fascinating that this sort of thing happens. And we often hear of young guys who are just so keen to come into our industry and they're willing to do almost anything. I think for a lot of them, they would be going, well, what the hell would these guys do risking their jobs doing this? Don't they love the flying? Don't they love this? You and I would probably understand, because we've been in the industry long enough, just how vicious and vindictive sometimes a company's management can be, and how they will try and force particular contracts or conditions of service onto their pilot group. And then after a few years, they will disappear out of the equation because they've done their few years as a manager and they drifted off to some other part of the airline or a different airline to leave us in the situation they left us. And sometimes you do have to fight for what is very hard-earned conditions of service, and you don't want to lose them. This is an interesting story for me, and I hope it's a sort of educational story for those who are coming into the industry, so they have some idea of what they might face one day.
Yeah, well, excellent. And he as you do, tells the story very well. Nigel does.
Oh, he's a smart guy. I mean, he wouldn't have been in the position he was unless he was committed to the cause, as it were, for his airline. And even chatting to him now, he's still very aware of what goes on. You'll just see how committed he was to the guys that were fired while on his watch, as it were, in the next interview, which is the final part.
All right. We'll have that on the next episode next week.
Excellent.
Steph,
Yes.
were you able to find
I
reference?
was, yes. So the FAR that I was looking for is FAR 9121, and it's specifically about portable electronic devices. Paragraph A says that, except as provided in paragraph B, which we'll get to in a second, no person may operate, nor any operator or pilot in command of an aircraft allow the operation of any portable electronic device on any of the following U.S. registered civil aircraft. So there's two instances. One is an aircraft operated by a holder of an air carrier operating certificate, or an operating so basically airlines. Or number two, any aircraft while it is operated under IFR. That says any aircraft. Doesn't make any exceptions. However, then it gets a little tricky because it goes down to paragraph B, and there's a subsection that says, paragraph B says, this section does not apply to any other portable electronic device that the operator of the aircraft, basically the pilot in command, has determined will not cause interference with the navigation or communication system of the aircraft on which it is to be used. So what that basically means is that if you are the renter, owner, operator of an aircraft, you're allowed to make that self-certification without any sophisticated testing equipment. So you can self-certify that your airplane is not adversely affected by, say, an iPad. And iPads are certainly legal for use as a electronic flight bag. You can use ForeFlight or similar products for that. That's no problem at all as replacement for paper charts, although they do recommend that you have a backup set, and that can be either paper or another electronic flight bag. But what I did, I actually pulled up ForeFlight just on my phone because my iPad is dead at the moment. But I actually put it into airplane mode, and you actually still get the GPS signal. So if I pull up an approach plate, if you're using it, at least for situational awareness, I can see on my approach plate here, it paints a little aircraft.
Yeah, you're in an airplane, Steph.
I know. I'm in an airplane on the ground here at my house.
That's what it means by airplane mode, apparently.
Yes, airplane mode.
No, that's not right.
So there's still, as long as you've downloaded everything in advance, there's no reason why your phone or your iPad has to be communicating with a cell signal that might interfere in order for you to get the vast majority of that information, which should be, for the most part, situational awareness anyway.
I put my phone in airplane mode, and I don't see an airplane on mine like yours. Darn it.
Oh, well.
I don't have that app, though.
Where's my camera? ForeFlight. So, it will still give me that information if I was actually in the air and flying. It would display all the relevant.
Steph, you're still.
No, I'm going. It says my ground speed here is 0 knots.
Oh.
So, but my
How come it's not shouting stall?
GPS altitude 614 feet with an accuracy of 10 meters, and that's in airplane mode. So, plenty of.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Although, at first that paragraph B sounds like a very, very large loophole to me.
It's an exceptionally large loophole. And, I was reading through a couple different articles on it, and it's basically, be cautious, be prudent, don't do reckless things, make sure that you're using, standard equipment, approved equipment. Probably not the best idea, even though you can fly. You could fly your entire flight just using your ForeFlight app without any other instruments in your cockpit. Probably not what you want to be doing, and probably not how you want to be explaining things to the FAA should something, or the NTSB should something not go as planned. So,
yeah,
yes. And as for cell phones, again, that kind of falls under that. For GA flights, for Part 91 flights, there's no guidance or regulation on that. So, again, user beware. I think a little bit of, the same basic guidance I think applies to when you're in your car, when you're operating any sort of vehicle or machinery. You want to make sure that you haven't lost your situational awareness, that it's not interfering with what you need to do during a particular phase of flight.
How true. How true.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Steph. That, as I said, I always learn something new on the show.
Part 91.21. So there you go.
All right.
I'm guessing if you're flying an old World War II airplane with nothing more sophisticated than, I don't know, I'm trying to think what would be very little. It's not really going to affect anything, is it?
It's not going to affect anything at all. And in a lot of aircraft, especially GA aircraft, your phone or your cell signal is probably not going to affect anything, which is why they have that big loophole in there of, basically, as long as you've determined it's not going to interfere, you make that decision. So,
excellent.
All right. Thank you, Steph.
You're welcome.
Moving on with Chris, who I believe will see those of us going to the meetup day after tomorrow night, Friday night in Atlanta at Manchester Arms. He says, greetings, APG crew and community. This is Chris from Decatur, Georgia, and I have finally gotten around to sending in feedback. I really enjoy the podcast, the local meetups I've been able to attend here in Atlanta, and looking forward to the 300 celebration. In any event, I know I'm a little late in getting this to you, but in honor of L1011 Day, and I'm thinking L1011 Day, and then he put the date, which is 10/11, October 2011. I mean, sorry, October 11th. There we go.
Golly.
No, apparently not.
Everyone it was all over the internet.
Oh, 10/11
Day. I thought for sure you saw it.
I must have been, I don't think I was on the internet that day. Anyway, I thought I would share with you a picture in honor of this magnificent plane. Attached is a picture of 2 first-class cabin seats from an Acme L1011 385 series that I currently own. So he has a picture here that we'll put in the actual seats from an L1011, which but it's an honor to own.
Oh, sorry. Those look pretty comfy.
Yeah, they do. Let's see. It's an honor to own a piece of its history. Keep up the great conversations, and thank you for all that you do with this great aviation community. And again, that was Chris Cochran. And yeah, they do look very comfy. Those must have been, did he say it was first class? I think it is.
Yes, first class.
Okay, yeah. Looks nice. Okay. Moving on. First Officer Ben in Australia. Would one of you like to...
Sure, I could do this one. He says, hello, APG crew. I never got around to thanking you for sharing my feedback way back in episode 266. The reason for my absence is because I got a new job. Since April, I've been doing my type rating and line training for a company that does maritime surveillance for Australia in Dash 8 aircraft. The course was extremely intense with plenty of late nights spent studying for the next sim. In the past, I always thought that flying a full motion simulator would be a lot of fun, but very quickly I found out that they are just stress boxes where nothing seems to go right for 4 hours with failure after failure simulated. The line training was also very intensive as our operation involves us flying down to just a few hundred feet above the ocean surface to investigate vessels. Never did I think I would be hand flying a transport category turboprop aircraft so low. Even though I've been checked to line, there is still so much more to learn about flying higher performance aircraft. Your show has always been an inspiration to me to achieve more in my aviation career, and I hope to have the experience and knowledge of your crew someday. Keep up the excellent work, APG crew. Now I just need to find time to catch up on nearly half a year of episodes. I'm sure I'll catch the APG bug again right away. Regards, First Officer Ben.
Well, congratulations, Ben, for getting through that. Well done, mate.
Yes, congrats. That's awesome.
Sounds like a fun flying job. I mean, despite all the stress and, technically difficult hand flying challenges it presents, but yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
it
must be really nice to do it in Australia, though, where the weather is, generally speaking, pretty bloody lovely. Doing that sort of a job in a gloopy place like the UK, where you get a lot of fishbowl over the ocean, which, for those who aren't aware, when the horizon merges into the sea and you don't have a clearly defined horizon to keep your nose against it, and you have to continually refer to your instruments to make sure you're not drifting down into the water. It's very hard. I'm sure you get the odd day like that, and you'll learn all about that, I guess. But I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time doing that job.
Yeah. All right. Eric writes from France. He's a patron of the greatest show on earth, bar none. Okay, maybe third or fourth, but who's counting? He builds us up and then he knocks us down.
I know. Thanks.
Sender of a grand total of 1 audio feedback a couple of years ago, and aviation geek / Airbus fan. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Eric. You're a good man.
I hope you get this in time and can actually plan accordingly. because I just had a brainwave while reviewing our coming family trip to the US of A. It appears that en route back to La France, we'll have a short stopover in KATL. So if you happen to be at Hartsfield on Friday, November 3rd, be advised, we'll be coming in on Delta Flight 2862, a 757 from Phoenix at mid-afternoon, and flying out on 681, 777, estimated departure 1825. If the stars do indeed align, all you'll have to do at this point all you'll have to do is point me out to the nearest convenient watering hole where the beers will definitely be on me. In the meantime, y'all have a great week and fly safe, Eric. And his last name is actually Pluvin. Is that the way you pronounce that, Steph?
Sounds good.
And so anyway, this is, I guess, any of you out there, APG people, who might be in the Atlanta airport on Friday, the 3rd of November. I'm trying to remember if I am doing anything that day. I think I'm coming home from a trip on the 3rd of November. And let me quickly here, I'm looking, and it says that I am returning, yes, on a flight. I'll be back in not too long after that.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's plan on meeting Eric, and we'll, of course, I'll still be in my uniform, so we probably can't drink any alcoholic beverages, or maybe I can change or something. I don't know. But if you're listening to the show, let's plan on that. And anybody else, again, who happens to be transiting KATL on Friday, the 3rd of November, join us. Let's see. Oh, here's an interesting one. I know we're getting kind of close to that 3-hour point, but we had talked about on an earlier show, or had some questions and talked a little bit about exterior light use. And Jazz writes, "Hi, Captains Jeff, Nick, Dana, and Steph. Can't we just call you Captain too?"
Sure.
I would include Rick, but he's too busy flying the only aircraft capable of lifting his watch to the corners of the globe. And of course, being a Boeing, he's more likely to need the dual ELTs, his Breitling behemoth. There we go.
That's it.
Let me try that again. And of course, being a Boeing, he's more likely to need the dual ELTs his Breitling behemoth has. So, APG syndrome. APG syndrome. Just asking for some guidance for a friend, he puts in quotes, who is concerned about how bad he has it. Suppose this friend recently chose his new car on the basis of which SUV had the best integration for playing podcasts with his iPhone. Would that be a bad case of the syndrome? Yes, it would. It would be a very bad case.
It's a new symptom we haven't heard of before.
Yeah, that is a new one. The list of symptoms grows longer every day.
It does.
So
exactly.
Just add that to the...
And he puts in next paragraph. I have a sensible question, though. I'm under the flight path into a regional airport in the UK. The aircraft, Airbuses, and jungle jets are typically 1,500 to 2,000 feet overhead. Sometimes at night, they have landing lights on, other times not, even the same types from the same airline. I thought there was a below 10,000 feet lights on rule, or is that just in the USA? Any thoughts on what's going on, and does it differ between the US and ICAO airspace? I know what I did there. Do you have an SOP regarding this? And then, in vain hope of finding the cure, you've convinced me to fund your IPA-driven research by finally becoming a patron, which is about time after 5 years of listening. I'm looking forward to the crew logs. And I know that he joined us a while back, and I hope that you're enjoying the several that we've had out in recent days. Exterior light usage is the subject he's asking about, and I put a couple of documents in here that to which we may refer if you want, and I'll start off with my own company's guidance on exterior lights usage, and they basically say, when you're, they have some rules regarding, when to turn all your lights on when you're taking the runway, lining up and waiting for takeoff clearance. Basically, they want most of the lights on, but not the landing lights, because the landing lights are kind of at least here in the U.S., are kind of a common signal that you have received takeoff clearance. And so, if you're crossing a runway and you see an airplane at the other end of the runway and they have their landing lights on, you're thinking, I'm wondering if that's really, if we really should be crossing the runway at this point. But then when you do receive clearance, then you turn the landing lights on, and that's a pretty standard procedure.
Except our airline doesn't do that.
Okay. I was going to say, yeah, there could be. I'm just talking about my specific company regarding this, and there's another document in here basically that says that this is what they recommend. I don't think, although, that there is definitive guidance as far as actual rules that say that you must do it this way and not do it this way. So they kind of leave it up to the discretion of airlines and pilots. But basic rule is that throw everything you can on, especially below 10,000 feet, to make yourself more visible to as many aircraft as you can out there. And then once you get a little bit higher, of course, the density of the volume of the traffic is starting to thin out, and so you can start turning off lights and stuff like that. Now on the Mad Dog, our landing lights are they pivot from the wingtips underneath the left and right wingtips, and they are, I don't know, probably 10 to 15 inch diameter lamps out there that are in the slipstream or the windstream, and they really vibrate a lot when you're at 250 knots. And then when you start getting a little bit faster, they even are, they're vibrating even more. And so our company basically says, consider retracting them when you go above 250 knots. So again, that equates basically to 10,000 feet here in the U.S.
It makes that aircraft look really large, like with the way out on the wingtips there.
Right, because most aircraft
I'm always thrown off by it.
Land near their fuselage, or
correct,
maybe midway out. Yeah. There is a safety alert for operators that I included here in our notes that talks about they're trying to increase, or they've noted an increase in runway incursions, and so have some guidance for light usage, for holding a position, and when you're clear for takeoff, when you're moving. That's another thing. I don't know if it's something that you all do, Nick, but when the airplane's moving, whether it's night or day, you have your taxi light on. Then when you come to a stop, you turn your light off, and that kind of gives the other flight or flights the indication that you're not going to move any further. And so that kind of makes you feel a little bit better as the other pilot of the other airplane.
Yeah, we treat that as a matter of etiquette or airmanship. We don't have any specific rules, regulations for that, in the same way that we don't actually, to my knowledge, have a regulation that requires you to use your landing lights below 10,000 feet. But our company also has a standard operating procedure that says you do, and most airlines do. In fact, you can put them on before that. That's not a problem. Guys often put the landing lights on at night during a descent so that they can see when the cloud's coming up, and so they know when to turn the anti-ice on. And I will often keep them on well above 10,000 feet in the climb out. If I'm concerned it's a really dark night, there's no moon or not many stars, so I can see cloud that we might accidentally go through and that might cause icing. In addition, if you have your landing lights on, they're pretty bright, and you're going through a little bit of wispy cloud or something, it can throw back a lot of light at you. So some guys will probably turn their lights off for that period, and that may be what Jez is seeing. I don't know. But of course, it's only a switch, and it's sometimes easy to forget, although for us, it's part of our 10,000 foot passing checks. Landing lights and LS push buttons, which means you turn on the display to give you your ILS readings on the main instruments. which, by the way, if you forget, they'll eventually turn themselves on, going, all it doesn't do is write up something that says, you stupid effer, you forgot to put the LS buttons on. It just quietly puts them on for you. We put them on at 10,000 feet and we turn them off in our after landing checks. We don't put them on when we've got a takeoff clearance. We put them on when we're entering the runway, because I think our company says that it's just better to have every light on so that people can see you on the threshold. They don't want an aircraft sitting on the threshold without his main lights on in case someone lands on top of it. But having said that, other companies have other SOPs.
Right. I did pull up some information from the Aeronautical Information Manual in section 4.3.23, use of aircraft lights. The FAA has a voluntary pilot safety program, Operation Lights On, to enhance the see and avoid concept. Pilots are encouraged to turn on their landing lights during takeoff, either after takeoff clearance has been received or when beginning the takeoff roll. Pilots are further encouraged to turn on their landing lights when operating below 10,000 feet, day or night, especially when operating within 10 miles of any airport or in conditions of reduced visibility and in areas where flocks of birds may be expected, coastal areas, lake areas, around refuse dumps, etc. So again, there's no hard and fast rule that says you have to do this. It's just we're very highly encouraged to do it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Funny enough, we had a chief pilot that said, because the Airbus has got an automatic system for turning the strobes on, we should just set it to auto and leave it there all the time, because when you land, they'll turn themselves off. When you get airborne, they'll turn themselves on. And then we had an aircraft very nearly land on another aircraft. I don't know if it was even in our country, but the CAA put out a circular saying, you guys should really be putting your strobes on when you enter the runway. And of course, on the Airbus, it was activated by the wait on wheel switch. So it didn't happen when you were sitting on the end of the runway. It waited until you actually got airborne and then put them on, which was not a lot of use if you're sitting waiting for your takeoff clearance and somebody's on the approach and doesn't see you, because all you've then got is your nav lights and your beacon, and they're not necessarily the brightest things.
Yeah, it's not bright at all.
So that SOP lasted about 6 months. Then it got changed back again.
I think some airlines, or I don't know if this is like a custom retrofit or whatever, but I think some of the regional airlines or airliners are built this way, but they have lights that kind of point aft from and up from the back of the airplane, and so it looks, when you're coming into land, it's very obvious that there's some kind of a vehicle on the runway.
All right. Well, our logo lights, I guess, would that are designed to shine onto the fin to tell everyone what airline you're on, would point up like that. And we have our facing lights, but they're designed to play back onto the main gear, so that you can see where the main gear are through your TV cameras on the fin and in the belly. But I don't think we've got any specifically pointing up the approach path, but that's actually, I think, a damn good idea.
Yeah, I do too. Maybe even, like flashing or, wobbling or, whatever, moving.
Well, I think really should be lasers.
Lasers, like Las Vegas.
Yeah. Moving all
right.
around. Make sure you know.
Yeah. Oh, man. So, hey, we're getting close to the end of the show here. Ralph has a great question about CRJ slides, L1011 pitch angle, and questions about what the heck is the difference between VFR, IFR, VMC, IMC. We're going to cover that in the next episode, along with a couple of questions from Glenn regarding an Air Asia flight that had a rapid D, and something about bed bugs on a British Airways flight. So we're going to save those, Glenn, for the next show. But finally, we're going to end this show with this piece of feedback from Rob. He says, we learn in episode 286 that Captain Nick nicked himself with a razor, a most fortunate accident considering what is printed on the O2 masks of all the Airbus products I fly. Reference attached photo. And so the attached photo here, he is pulling one of the little, I guess it's the thing that goes around your head that inflates to kind of keep the mask safely and firmly planted on your face. And on the mask itself, it says, "Beards will not seal."
Does someone say seal?
I think they had a problem with one on a runway in Alaska.
Yeah, I just saw that too. Yeah.
In Barrow. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, some places have deer and other animals. Alaska, they have seals. So.
A seal strike. That sounds interesting.
When I was first reading this, I thought I was going to say, oh, he meant to say a most unfortunate accident, but no, he said a most fortunate accident.
He thought it was fortunate that you accidentally shaved off all your...
For a short, very short period of time. Right. You were much safer in case you had to affix an oxygen mask on your face.
They won't seal quite as well as bare naked skin, but they seal quite adequately.
I'm sorry, it says right here, clearly in the picture, beards will not seal. Not seal as well.
Well, my name.
Are you reading something different?
Beards will sort of seal. How about that?
My name's not Will, so that doesn't apply to me.
Okay. Well, these are Airbuses. Come on. I think he was trying to make a convincing argument, but apparently it's not taking. Oh, well.
No, it's not.
Rob.
Well, all the time that I'm authorized to fly with the beard, I shall continue to. But thank you very much for your concern.
Actually, I don't blame you. I think that was just Rob trying to get you on something, but it didn't work, Rob. You'll have to try harder.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, it is time to shut this thing down again for this week's episode. And thank you, Steph and Captain Nick, for joining me on this episode. I had a lot of fun, and as I said, I learned a lot, and I hope those listening learned something as well. If you want to participate in the show live, follow us on social media, and we put out tweets and stuff to let you know when we're about to record the show and when shows are released. And so Steph, why don't you tell us about the social media thing?
Social media, you can find us on Twitter. At APG Crew is the handle that will get you in contact with all of us. If you want to contact one of us individually, there is a pinned tweet at the top of the page with all of our individual Twitter handles. You can also head over to facebook.com/airline pilot guy, and that's a place where community members can post various aviation related topics. We post things occasionally and respond to your questions. That part of social media.
All right. And one little extra piece of social media. We'll have Hillel tell us about that.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and plain tales topics. We plan meetups and events. To get into the Slack team, please send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @HI11E1, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel @HI11E1, and see you in Slack.
And don't forget to head over to the airlinepilotguy.com website, where you'll find information about the crew, the community, the coffee fund, merchandise, and so much more, as well as information on how you can download your APG app on your iOS or Android device. And until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Yeah, I guess my bandwidth must be really getting pretty crappy because you guys are just breaking up all over the place.
Oh, really? You sound good now, but for a while you've been, occasionally you're just in and out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the plain tails was a bit ropey at my end, but then I've heard it before, so that's okay.
I'll have to go back and listen, Nick. I'm so sorry. I didn't listen to any of it. I had to do my research trying to find that silly CFR.
You're definitely forgiven.
I don't have all those committed to memory, so sorry.
Yeah.
Well, it's about like me and some of the, am I allowed to use phone on the flight deck? Which is kind of weird now because, of course, we have this active Wi-Fi on the aircraft now. So if you put your phone to airplane mode, of course, you can't pick it up. You can turn the Wi-Fi on, and that's perfectly legal. So I'm not quite sure where we stand there. And I must admit, there are some aids that our phone can give us that no one else can. So, for example, if I were to look at how many aircraft are queued for takeoff at JFK, because I can't see from where we're parked, there's no hope, and make a decision as to whether I'm going to do a single-engined taxi out or not, that is a damn useful piece of kit. So,
what do you use for that? Do you what do you look up?
Flight radar.
Flight 24, yeah, Flight Radar 24. Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Flight radar 24.
And there you go. And then I can just go and go, oh, look, there's 9 down there. Perhaps we will. Or, oh, look, this place is almost deserted. By the time we get there, we'll be straight off, in which case we won't bother. Because I tell you, it's a complicated procedure on our company doing starting up that second engine, or on the case of a 340, the other 2 engines. So, I don't like doing it if I don't have to.
I guess the fear is, I think everybody listening to the show would agree that these are very incredibly useful devices or tools.
Oh, absolutely.
But they also, I can see the fact that they may consider that we may...
they're a huge source of distraction.
And may use them for other things that, leads to an unsafe environment. And I can see, like trying to, walk the line on or the fence on that.
Yeah, I draw the line at Tinder, but other than that...
Captain Nib, turn right. What? Swipe right?
Swipe left. Swipe left. Swipe right.
So, well, I'm just trying to find if there's someone nice on the airplane. That's all.
Oh, man.
Only joking, by the way.
Of course,
Civil Aviation Authority and
right.
Mr.
They'll be
Airline
calling you later on tomorrow.
Oh, look, my phone's just gone off.
I know, right?
I don't know who these people are.
Captain Nick Anderson, we have a phone number for you to call, actually.
Ready to copy?
Ready to copy?
Yeah.
Lane says the Air Canada pilots at San Francisco were playing Candy Crush.
Yes. Oh, you never know.
He had a game of words with friends between each other.
I'll be damned interested to know if their cockpit voice recorder was cleared or not.
Yes.
Because that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because on the other Air Canada flight, it was, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, because it wasn't really considered an incident as classified by...
Until later. And it was...
Till later, yeah.
I mean, but did they actually pull the or press the erase button, or did they just not take it off and it just got over?
Is there an erase button? I thought it was just over.
No, there's definitely an erase button.
Yeah, but I
knew
you
that.
better have a very, very good excuse.
Yeah,
you can't accidentally do it.
It's like refusing to give a blood,
like pleading the fifth. Like
if you
not going to incriminate myself.
Refusing to give a blood test. It's the same sort of thing. Like if you've pressed the erase button, there's like the big guilty flag just sticks out from behind your head.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in the case of the one that almost was a huge disaster a few months back, they just kept flying the airplane and the recorder just recorded over everything.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I've just finished a plane tale for when the 49ers interviews are over. And it's an aircraft that came damn close to crashing. They didn't even advise the Air Accident Investigation Board for 3 days. By that time, they'd fixed the airplane and got it airborne again, and it flown so many times that the accident recorder was overwritten. And that was the second time that company had done it to that aircraft. Both times the AAIB did an investigation, and neither time did they have anything to look at.
Wow.
I was going, yeah, okay, there's
That's just not right.
Some dodgy operators out there, but it's a great paint job, particularly since I got it from the horse's mouth from one of the pilots involved.
Oh, neat.
Very
look forward to that.
Pretty rare. That's
awesome.
Good.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody in the chat room for hanging out with us on tonight's show or today's show or wherever you happen to be, whatever time it is.
Oh God, it's nearly 1:30. I've been drinking whiskey. Yeah. It keeps me awake.
Oh, okay. usually has
Replaced
the opposite
the
effect on most
espresso
people.
with whiskey.
Hi.
All right.
I find it's a bit of a bell curve. Steph knows about that.
Yes.
You're
I feel the
tired,
same way about.
you drink
and then
whiskey, you
you're
feel awake,
and
you
then
drink
it's
more whiskey,
And then it's a steep
then you
curve.
fall off the
steep,
cliff.
steep incline, yes.
That's when you're sitting in front of your computer and
It's
then
kind
you
of
wake up.
It's not even so much
Yeah.
a bell curve. It's just like an exponential growth, and
Yeah.
then like
You hit the edge of the envelope.
I've done that.
Love
I
it.
can't tell you how many times I've done that. I'm working on something, or maybe I'm watching something on the computer, like Netflix or Hulu, and all of a sudden I'll wake up and go, "What time is it?
right.
What
Where
am
am
I
I?
looking at?"
What have I been doing?
What's this pornography doing on my computer?
Yeah, I don't know how that got there.
Lane Street says shimmy shake.
Shimmy shake.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah,
Lane.
good one. That's good. We're gonna have to play that on the episode 300.
Let's not. Oh my god.
That's a good idea. Let's have people out there, like send in suggested
Send in their
clips
favorites,
from
like-
their favorites in the last 100 shows.
Oh no, that
fun.
would be cool. That would be very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can have a
Alright.
little compilation.
I don't know.
That
if I'll be
was
able
after
to
the
re-listen to
200,
that.
right? Yeah, that
It
was.
was. Oh yes. No, that was much more recently.
I loved it. Okay. Yeah. Do I know if I'm coming to New York City for Saturday afternoon, 11 November? No, I'm not sure yet, Micah. My schedule is still kind of up in the air.
I'm out there a
that
few
week.
days earlier. I'm afraid I'm there on the 7th. And I think the morning of the 8th, which is no good to Micah, I'm suspecting. That's just a shame. I did actually bid for the 11th, but it didn't fit in with the schedulers. I've got a damn busy month next month. I'm really not looking forward to it. But yeah, there you go. Sorry about that.
Yeah, but I'll as soon as I know something, Mike, I'll let you know. But it may be closer to that date than very far out. Doesn't make any sense. Sorry. I need to go get something to eat, and then I need to get to bed. And I need to pack up all this equipment and stuff. So I need to shut this thing down.
We have got what we call minimum base turnaround, which is the absolute minimum number of days off they can give you after a trip. And I have got throughout the entire month minimum base turnaround except one where I've got one extra day at home. So that makes it a damn busy month for me, I'm afraid.
I thought you airline pilots were always home, never do anything, never work.
Yeah. Well, it used to be that way until we laid up 3 of the bin liners. 3 of them. Useless bloody airplanes. What a mistake that was.
Are we on the right side of that bell curve now? And going.
Well, he's not cursing yet, so it's okay. We're probably still safe. So.
Yeah. Rubber dog shit. That's what it is.
Okay. Well, let's get out of here before it gets bad.
Well, it is after hours, isn't it?
Yeah, APG after dark.
There we go.
All right. Well, I can leave you guys on if you want to continue, but I've got to go.
All right. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, it's late enough for me. I've nearly finished my whiskey. So.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to bed too. So.
All right. Bye bye, everybody in the chat room.
Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye.